Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to OPC Season 2. Kevin AVRL Walker joined with me this evening is Matt Pixie Carroll. We're heading into the final evening of week number 6, and that marks the end of the regular season of the OPC season.
Yeah, well, and it's been a pretty remarkable way to end the season, and I think a fitting way as well for how close all of these teams has come. We are now at the top of the final day with a 3-way tie, which will end up determining the last 2 teams to make it into playoffs, and you can see it on your screens there. This is probably the most fitting way I feel the season could end, because in among that as well isn't just breaking the tie, but also determining of the 2 teams that make it, which one gets the 3rd place seed and plays Flash Wolves in the semi, and who has to face up against Ardiant.
To resolve the 3-way tie, what matches do we have to look forward to tonight? We're going to start things off with Machi and Hong Kong Attitude, an important one to win for Hong Kong Attitude. AHQ and Blank Esports, which is going to resolve the other 2 teams in that tie. Limited Supreme and Mega now the final opportunity for Limited Supreme to pick up themselves a win, and then Ardiant and Flash Wolves, the number 1 team against the current number 2.
And that's the thing, right? Yeah, very important that Hong Kong Attitude win this first matchup, because if they happen to lose it, depending on how that score goes and then how the score of Blank AHQ goes, there is a possibility that Hong Kong Attitude just doesn't make playoffs, even though one of either Blank or AHQ is guaranteed to lose that matchup. If the map difference is such that Hong Kong Attitude have less total map wins, they don't make playoffs.
It's going to be quite difficult pill to swallow for Hong Kong Attitude if that's the case now. So it's an important match for them to go into. And so here we go, Machi and Hong Kong Attitude. Of course, it's not all over for Machi either. This is still a team that wants to come in and prove themselves even this late into the tournament.
Well, and this is technically their last chance to avoid bottom 2. If they do win this and then Mega lose to Liberland, again, depending on scoreline, I believe it is actually possible for Machi to make it out of bottom 2. It's going to be a hard ask because honestly both of those results would be upsets in their own right, but first up you do have to take a look at the other side of this matchup being Hong Kong Attitude.
This is the Hong Kong Attitude that most recently last evening lost in a best of 5 series against AHQ, which is the reason why we're in this debacle in the first place. This 3-way tie between all the teams. It would have been a much cleaner run into the playoffs for Hong Kong Attitude if it wasn't for that match loss last night. Now, before we get into the game though, gonna have a couple words from both sides. It's gonna be Cassis, the coach of Machi, and Randy, the flex player from Hong Kong Attitude. Do you have anything you wanted to say now that it's the last day of competition? So today's the last day, but we're gonna be putting in as much effort in our last performance as our first. So last night you guys had a very difficult match against AHQ last night. Is there anything you want to say to Machi? So we're definitely going to make sure we win tonight.
And that's kind of interesting, you said it yourself. That's the only reason that Hong Kong Attitude are in this debacle is because they picked up that loss yesterday to AHQ, and it was monumental for a lot of other reasons as well, not just in the map score. You know, it's the first time AHQ have beaten these guys now across the last 4 times they've met. 3 of those were Hong Kong Attitude wins. It was a really grueling series between both teams that honestly came so down to the wire. Like, you can identify the one fight that swung it right at the end, right? And off the back of that as well, AHQ opened the path again for themselves to make it into that top 4. Means all they have to do is beat Blank, whereas had they picked up the loss to Hong Kong Attitude, they would have been having to beat Blank and then also overcome them in terms of map difference. So it kind of reopened this top 4 in a way, made sure that it stayed as close as it currently is coming into the last day. And this is now Hong Kong Attitude's opportunity to secure that top 4 spot unequivocally at long last.
All right, well, let's go ahead and meet the teams now, discover who's going to be playing on each side. It's going to start things off with Machi Esports. One thing that's very interesting is we did get a little bit of a sneak peek in the introductions earlier as the teams were getting on stage, and I'm not too sure if I saw the member, but Small Pond was added to this Machi roster. He's already started to show up this week, so if you're unsure of who Small Pond is, if you did pay attention in the OPC Season 2 promotion and relegation tournament, Small Pond was on Talent Esports, so one of the ex-teammates of Mui, who's now on Hong Kong Attitude. So that's very interesting. I wonder if Small Pond is going to be playing today, and if so, in what position?
And that would be interesting, right? Because there's an element of risk associated with bringing a new member onto the roster at the last minute, especially when a win here could have you avoiding that bottom 2 finish. You kind of don't want to take any risks if you don't have to. But the thing is, it's not like this current roster has been picking up many wins anyway, right? This current roster is the one that has got them that bottom 2 finish spot. So maybe they do want to change something up. Maybe they feel that this is maybe an ace up the sleeve, something that can bump them up to that level they need to take Hong Kong Attitude by surprise, get the upset win, maybe keep themselves out of bottom 2, and ultimately dash Hong Kong Attitude's potential playoff hopes as well. It wouldn't be completely out of the picture that Hong Kong Attitude make it in, but could upset that balance a little bit. And speaking of taking a look at the Hong Kong Attitude side of things, a roster they have felt more than happy with, and you mentioned there, Mui was also their pickup from Talon Esports, and I think it would be interesting for that reason if Small Pond came on to Machi tonight, because you do get that element of someone who has played with Mui, and therefore you'd think would know how to play against Mui, because he has been a really big pickup for Hong Kong Attitude, alongside pulling Randy off the bench. That's just kind of helped them push to that next level, it seems.
And not just that, but when you consider Hong Kong Attitude's loss to AHQ last night, that was a very long series, and now going into tonight, if you're Machi, if you're Blank going up against AHQ in the next match, you have a lot of match data to look at to determine exactly what went wrong in that particular series for either team. If you're Machi right now, you want to be taking and paying a close attention to Hong Kong Attitude. What exactly were the issues for this team that led to their loss against AHQ, and what specifically about that can you exploit?
But of course, the hill to overcome for Machi there is kind of an obvious one, right? Machi are not AHQ right now. AHQ are looking really strong, looking very resurgent ever since picking up a win against Flash Wolves. Machi, on the other hand, have really struggled to pick up wins. In fact, the third win they have there was actually a win, if I'm not mistaken, against, I want to say, Mega.
Yep, they did beat Mega.
And that's really it. Otherwise, they would actually currently be 2-11, with those 2 being their games against Liberal and Supreme. So that's the thing, right? They've struggled to pick up wins. Mega, on the other hand, have picked up a win against AHQ more recently, and have had some very close series against teams like Blank and even against Hong Kong Attitude. So in order to exploit what it was AHQ were exploiting, they actually need to be able to play on the same level as AHQ, and you've got to question their ability to do that, right? Just off the cuff, it's all there in the standings. If they were playing as well as AHQ right now, they wouldn't be in the bottom 2.
And the other thing as well, in terms of standings, is if you did pay attention to the map score there, Machi, even with a 3-0 sweep tonight, even if Mega have an 0-3 sweep to Liberal and Supreme instead, it would not, unfortunately, change the standings.
You're
for those
quite
teams.
right.
So Machi is still going to be 7th, Mega is still going to be 6th. That much is certain. For all the 3 bottom teams, they can't change. For the first 2 teams, they can't change. It's the other 3 in the middle that do.
Exactly. And on the whole, it just puts Machi in this rough kind of position, because, I mean, that's kind of your narrative of the season, really. You went from being the team that was really jostling with Hong Kong Attitude for 4th place at the end of Season 1. You just barely kind of fell short of that, and then you've only just slid further and further from there. New blood has come into the competition that's blown everyone away in the form of Ardiant. All the old blood in the competition has improved to the point where even Mega, who were formerly Fireball in Season 1, have now surpassed you as well, when previously they were just below you in the standings. You've gone from being potentially the 4th place to now currently the 7th place.
Yeah.
It's a really rough spot, right? And you would at least want to have that win at the very end to be your capstone.
And it does appear that, if I'm not mistaken, it's not going to be any substitutions on the Machi side. So the same 6 members you're very used to seeing. That being said, though, we're not seeing any of Rai coming up in this tournament for the entire duration of the season. It's going to be the core lineup.
Yeah, and I do actually think that that's smart in a sense, because, I mean, like we were saying before when we were discussing it regarding Small Pond, you kind of don't want to take that risk. Machi have played with Rai early in Season 1 and then again a little bit later in Season 1, and they had a lot of reasons for not playing with him. You know, individual ability aside, there was still some communication side things they needed to work on with him, which they have still been working on, but you've also got to appreciate that they will have been working on improving with the core roster as well. So in terms of whether or not Rai comes off the bench, there is an element of catch-up that needs to happen before that's a possibility. I respect Machi playing the safe option here. As much as it's still true that this is the roster that has landed you in the bottom 2, it's still the right call to not change things up at the last minute.
And the final hurrah as well for this team. I mean, this has to be where Machi have their best showing now, right at the end of the tournament. They don't have a lot left, I'd say, in the tank as a team, so they need to be able to have their best showing now. Look forward to 2018, look forward to the next season OPC with, I would say, just look forward to what they can perform and achieve moving forward into that next year.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, really, that's true for whichever teams today do not make that top 4, because I mean, even if you look at the other side of that, with that 3-way tie, only 2 of those teams will make playoffs, and the other team will be in actually the same position as what you just said, Machi, in there, and that it's really going to be about going away, taking the good out of what happened, taking the positives away from it, looking honestly at what needed to be fixed up and worked on, and come back swinging for the new year. Proud of what you've achieved, but hungry to achieve more. The thing Hong Kong Attitude got to be hoping here is that that team isn't them. And in terms of match record, a really strong showing here could just help bump them into that 3rd place instead of the 4th place. Something like a 3-0 would mean that as long as AHQ blank goes to minimum 4 games, doesn't matter who wins, Hong Kong Attitude would be ahead in the match record.
And this is where Hong Kong Attitude now have to be at a stage where you have to consider, with the double round robins, they had a decent showing in, I would say, the middle section there. Right at the start, they even had a loss against Mega, which kind of hurts them in the overall standing. So Mega has somewhat played spoiler to a lot of teams down this competition. Machi, well, sorry, not to Machi, but they have played spoiler to Hong Kong Attitude, to AHQ as well. And now for Hong Kong Attitude, they're going to try right at the end of the round robin to bring themselves back in.
Map pick going to be Lijiang Tower, selected by Machi, who of course have the home side for what will be the final time these 2 teams meet. That means they will get the control, middle assault, and last hybrid map picks being 1, 3, and 5. Hong Kong Attitude will get map picks 2 and 4. Both of which they'll be pretty happy with, all things considered, because, I mean, we even saw it in the series against AHQ last night, and indeed a lot of the longest series that Hong Kong Attitude have had, where things have gone to, 4 or 5 games. They are really good at those payload-oriented maps. That is a strength of theirs. They're comfortable enough on Assault that they could probably feel that even though it's Machi's pick, that could be one they could pick up the win on. So for this one, Machi getting the control pick, this is one they actually really need to leverage into a win above all else. They need to get off to a good start here.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, you're heading into Hollywood territory. You're heading into a lot of where Hong Kong Attitude are really favored, but that's where the difference has to be, right? Because we kind of said the same thing yesterday against AHQ, where for Hong Kong Attitude, they're going to look favored on those hybrids. Even now, Assault, which they took of AHQ, they did lose Hollywood, which does give a little bit of hope to the Machi side, but that strong start on control has to be where it begins for this team.
It absolutely does, and I'm trying to do some math out here, trying to remember the numbers off the top of my head. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it would actually be possible for Hong Kong Attitude to win 3-2 and not make playoffs. I may not quite be right on the math there. I will need to double check that in a moment. But certainly, it's got to be a good performance, no matter how you slice this one. Hong Kong Attitude have got to deliver here more than anywhere else.
And they can't let last night's loss shake them either. They need to be rather composed, still coming in very confident. They have a good record against Machi. The last time these 2 teams met, it was a 3-0 in Hong Kong Attitude's favor. So that would speak to their ability to maybe do the same again.
First map going to be Gardens. And really nothing too spicy coming out of either of these teams. Both just sticking with what they know. And that means nuns on the Genji, means Mui on the Soldier.
And the last time we were at Lijiang Tower as well, this was a 2-0 that Hong Kong Attitude took. So see if they can repeat that performance. It's going to be the Tracer Soldier versus Tracer Genji, and already first blood going over to Hong Kong Attitude.
Yeah, D-Crown just a little too deep, and the ground control is just there from Hong Kong Attitude, playing around that Soldier very well, just looking to hold position, get that damage out. Taking out the members of Machi didn't seem to be too much of a challenge there, set up nicely on the point now, and again, it's still on Machi to step up and deliver.
Still waiting for Machi to get this opening pick of theirs. Still trying to find exactly how they want to play this dive. Look for Hong Kong Attitude to play mainly for disengage. They want to keep Mui alive. They want to give Mui a lot of space to work with.
Machi, on the other hand, they need to get something out of Nuns here. They need to get a big Dragon Blade out. And that's a good pick, actually, on Mango Giant. The pressure on CQB is exactly the kind of conversion they need. Hong Kong Attitude aren't going to go down easy, though. Looking to pressure out these tanks so that Shaolin can get aggressive in his own right, and they take out Resty too. Losing Mui, though, and Randy's mech means unless Shaolin pulls it off, no, he doesn't. He goes down to no taunt. That's actually going to be Machi hitting back in pretty convincing fashion.
Yeah, it was. They still took a couple of losses, though, so not as clean as they can possibly have done it. CQB going down rather late, but still stalling the cap out, and actually giving Hong Kong Attitude the opportunity to continue stalling. With the team now going down, that's going to be the end of that one. Can't going to clean up an extra one, and this is now working for Machi.
Yeah, the Pulse Bomb able to secure a ting, and then a one clip on Mui is actually pretty great, given that Hong Kong Attitude otherwise could have stalled for quite a bit.
You actually saw that there, Machi, right at the start of that second fight, Nun's picking up 3 kills, but despite that, Mui was able to get the counter trade, so as long as Mui's alive, as long as Hong Kong Attitude have their backline intact, they're capable of making those counter trades, and that needs to be the target for Machi.
It's got to be the Blade versus the aimbot hit, really. Nuns has to get a lot of mileage out of this Dragon Blade. They will have the Transcendence to keep him safe as he goes for it, and he's got to find an angle in for it now, or at least convert something else off the Transcendence. Mango Jai committing his own. Machi are going to get lean on resources here. They do at least survive the Tactical Visor, now able to get aggressive. That's the kind of Dragon Blade they need. Getting the one is enough for now. Got the self-destruct out and killed Randy before he remexed. Machi looking to stay in control of this fight for now, and getting the Primal Rage out of a ting. That's pretty ideal.
This is Nun saying you do in fact bring a sword to a gunfight. It works out well for Machi. He was able to get the kills. This time around, Mui wasn't able to get any counter trades, and Hong Kong Attitude, they didn't use their sound barrier either. They kind of have to just drop that fight and run for it. A Ting uses the Primal Rage in the middle of it, doesn't get enough picked up, and now Hong Kong Attitude, they're fairly far behind.
You do wonder about that Primal Rage from a Ting as well. I mean, I suppose it happened. D-Crowns, though, was maybe a bit of an overcommit, but that's an early pick. Self-destruct, though, to trade one back, takes the sound barrier off the table, and Machi smartly getting aggressive. Do need to respect the damage output from Mui, but can't. Oh, going down to said Mui, actually. Kind of swings this the other way now. Shaolin, no, not quite getting enough done, and Machi may just barely be able to hold on to this thanks to Nuns really keeping the damage output on the point itself. Sound barrier can come in from Hong Kong Attitude, though. They want to commit, and the Tactical Visor looking to get aggressive. They need to get Nuns here above all. He's on the cusp of getting another Dragon Blade. They're trying to pressure out Mui. They do get decrowned. Nuns being low. There's going to be the closeout that they finally needed. 99% though for Machi as Hong Kong Attitude get the grab back through.
It's been a highly contested 1v1. Nuns and Mui on the other side as well. Both of these guys, despite not necessarily facing each other, how much impact they can have against the other team has been very important. Nuns has been doing great with and without Dragon Blade. Mui's just been a factor though. He took a 1 versus 2 near his own spawn, comes in with the Tactical Visor, gets kept alive with the sound barrier, and does so much work. Gives Hong Kong Attitude another run on this cap.
Machi are going to have the ultimates coming up, though. Again, they really need to get work done with this Dragon Blade. Looking to get aggressive, gets the Transcendence out of Mango, and they can just hold tight with that Dragon Blade. They do have to commit their own Transcendence, and there's the Dragon Blade out onto Mui. Exactly what they need. Picking up Mango and a Ting going down in the front line. Machi, even if Nuns goes down here, they've just got the numbers around the point. Good close out by Shaolin, but it's probably not going to be enough to get themselves back on the point. Randy does preserve the mech, but they've got to get a foot on it. They've got to preserve the fight somehow. Shaolin pressured out, and Machi just looking to go aggressive, stop Hong Kong Attitude from piling in. CQB ends up over the edge now as Machi. They've still got resources to use here. The Primal Rage, the sound barrier, still holding on to a self-destruct, and they're still getting these kills through too as Randy goes over the edge as well. And it looks like Hong Kong Attitude just aren't going to get the members on the point to give it a real solid contest. Machi can still commit more resources if they desperately have to. Very much in control here as they look to close it out towards the end.
And that's the big problem for Hong Kong Attitude because they just do not have the resources. Finally, a Pulse Bomb becomes available, Shaolin, but it's too late because he went down in the middle of that fight. Machi still holding on to the cap. Randy, the last player now. Mui respawns. It's not going to come in time. That's going to be the cap out for Machi, and still now looking good despite coming in as underdogs.
It was a pretty heroic stall out there from Hong Kong Attitude, but unfortunately it was one of those situations where it was just a stall out with no win condition. And that's the good thing that Machi did is they accepted that the point was going to be contested, so they just kind of kept that fight tidy. They didn't worry about really going big for kills or anything like that. What they did do is they made sure that Hong Kong Attitude weren't ever going to capitalize off the contest. They were never going to get other members back onto the point to reinforce whoever was on there. They weren't ever going to get ultimates onto the point. And actually that was really well controlled by Machi towards the end.
And you could see there that Machi was able to adapt in the middle of the series. They saw what the win condition on the Hong Kong Attitude side was, which time and time again was the fact that Moe was doing a lot of damage with the soldiers. So towards the end of that map, they were able to deal with them, and even more effectively by pressuring the objective, making Hong Kong Attitude play desperate and splitting Moe off from the rest of his team.
Hong Kong Attitude needing to change that one back around. Now Nun's able to retreat to the point, and actually that means Machi fairly well set up on that one, given that Nun survived, and now getting pressure onto Mango Jai and the Hong Kong Attitude backline. Pressure is on Hong Kong Attitude to find a way onto this point.
Yeah, Hong Kong Attitude is going to run the exact same lineup as Machi Esports, so this will be a complete mirror, and Nun's going to draw first blood against his counterpart.
Yeah, speaking of complete mirror, it's like looking into one in it, Mui. That's going to be a Ting getting pressured out and going down as well, and now Hong Kong Attitude need to find a safe retreat path here. Desperately can't getting one through on Mango Jai. They're going to get the route out off the back of that Tracer as well. That's exactly the start Machi are after.
And the problem here for Hong Kong Attitude was on Gardens, they started with the lead on the camp. This time, they do not have the lead on the camp. That goes to Machi instead. We're now control. They got the ultimate charge, and Hong Kong Attitude have to play from behind. Unfortunately, when it was Gardens, they struggled to play from behind. So can they now adapt and do it on Night Market when they couldn't do it before?
It's got to be the real question, doesn't it? The Pulse Bomb in from Kant as well, if he can get something on the wraparound. Good block by Randy. They do take a little bit of damage just from the pressure, but they're going to survive it. Randy, they're trying to get the route on him. They need to be careful to not overextend here. You can see Kant just playing with a bit of caution on the side.
There's definitely no extension from the Hong Kong Attitude side because they're still stuck in this, the kind of the base area. They're still stuck in the indoor section, and with that, Machi Esports can choose their approach. They can choose to kind of just keep Hong Kong Attitude contained within that area and not let them touch the capital.
Well, Nun's looking to get aggressive with that Dragon Blade. Gets Mui, and that's pretty ideal. Mui was trying to get his own Dragon Blade done. And Hong Kong Attitude kind of have to commit to this fight now with the sound barrier out. Converting on Kiyomi is what they need, but they lose Mango Jai. CQB gets pressured. They're just still losing all these members. No one's really been able to shut down Nuns just yet. Now a Ting gonna lose his life. Doesn't want to commit that Primal Rage, and I think rightfully so, but it's a lot of resources for no gain from Hong Kong Attitude.
You can tell with Mui now going into the fire that he just cannot deal with Nuns, so he wants to go for a direct counter and say, look, Nuns can't reach me into the air. We'll have to say that's pretty important because Nuns so far has been the MVP of Machi. Everything between the two teams has looked rather even. The big imbalance is that Nuns has consistently outplayed Mui.
Taking Kant off the table is big for them though, and now they traded into Kiyomi as well, so Machi very much numerically behind in this fight. Good pressure coming out of Mui as well. They get No Talk and D-Crown both. This is what Hong Kong Attitude have been after. Machi at least didn't commit any resources, but this is only Hong Kong Attitude's first time on the point. They need to hold it down for a long time.
This is going to be Machi now. How are they going to respond to this? Because they are now behind for the first time on Night Market. They've got a couple ultimates available, so they can go for a big push here. They can go for a big commit when Rishia does have the sound barrier as well. Still waiting for this Dragon Blade from Nun so far, and they don't have good options against Mui, so they have to beat everyone on the ground. The other 5 members need to be the target on Hong Kong Attitude.
And it has been a smart adaptation by Hong Kong Attitude to get Mui onto the Farah, but yeah, they need to absolutely get mileage out of it. Kant already looking for a wraparound, finding these healers. That's a great stick onto Mango Jai to open it up. No counter trade just yet, and that means CQB's got no protection as the dive comes in. Hong Kong Attitude need to get something with the self-destruct or indeed any of these. And yeah, Machi get the cap in that too as Hong Kong Attitude lose Shailin. And now it is not looking good for them. All from behind. No healers to top off these tanks. Mui nothing with the rocket barrage. And they're just going to lose those last few members. Randy the only one there. Now CQB and Mango Jai are not the members you want stalling out. In fact, Mango Jai barely even getting towards the point. It's just CQB alone. Mango Jai pressured out on the other side of it. Shailin cannot get close enough. And that is how you draw first blood in a series.
First blood in terms of kills getting gotten by Machi Esports, and also first blood in terms of a map score. This is a little bit unexpected from Machi, but now Hong Kong Attitude, they have to be able to respect the ability that Machi, even this late into the tournament, are still a very viable threat, and now it shows exactly why Machi, they never let up. Coach Cass has said, we're going to come into our final match as strong as we did in an opening match, and that opening match was a 3-0 against Mega. That was a statement, and they're looking to make another statement tonight.
That was also for Hong Kong Attitude. the last map they can afford to lose in this tournament. They now must close out on a 3-1, otherwise there is a risk for them of not making playoffs. If they get 0-3'd, there's almost a guarantee they don't make playoffs if the AHQ blank series goes to anything more than 3 games itself. And off the back of that, Machi do have that 1 win in the pocket on their pick. That is exactly, like we said at the start, how you want to begin this series as Machi.
Exactly. We talk about the fact that for Machi, getting that first map win is important if they want to take up this whole series, because now moving into the other map picks, it gets a little bit tricky. You go into Hong Kong Attitude territory where they feel much more confident on the hybrid escort objective types of maps where it's a little bit more mobile and you really start to see their composition shine. But a lot of questions on Lee Jung-tae. It wasn't really clean for them, especially when you remember the first time these two teams met, it was a 2-0 on Lee Jung in Hong Kong Attitude's favor.
And I mean, even just compared to last night against AHQ, they had a closer looking match on control than what Machi just did to them there. I mean, the fact that Night Market was nearly 100-0, Hong Kong Attitude only really got the cap for one little moment. They didn't even win the follow-up fight off that. Like, that's pretty close to one-sided, especially when you consider that this is the 7th place team playing against a team that is currently tied for 3rd. It's pretty incredible.
You had a previous sort of interview as well. We'll actually talk about that later because let's get right into the replay first. It's going to be the opening fight between both the teams here. Look for the positioning from Mui. It's going to be the most important thing. And look for Machi to be the ones diving first. They can't afford to take too much poke. And because they dive in first, it's Randy shutting down D-Crown straight off the top.
And there was just this split-second difference between D-Crown being in the front and Kant arriving on the backside. And it was the split second that allowed Hong Kong Attitude to take down the Winston shield, get the damage on D-Crown, and actually they could safely follow up on him at that point. If there had been slightly cleaner execution out of Machi, had Kant been there a little earlier, they would have actually been pressuring out Mui and all those members of Hong Kong Attitude on the bridge. They had made the proactive move, they just didn't quite make it with enough clean execution on the timing. On Night Market, they did do exactly that, but this was where it really kind of came down, right? The follow-up fight was just solid. Like, there's no two ways about that. It was just solid, went really, really back and forth, really, really hard fought, bitterly fought, as it were. And it kind of starts as the beginning of the turning point, right? You lose that opening fight, then you start swinging back at the 11th hour on the follow-up fight, and from there, it looked pretty close to one-sided.
The reason the follow-up fight for Machi was so good is because they split the Hong Kong Attitude side up. Hong Kong Attitude want to kind of ball up their back line, want to keep Mui safe, but the fact that Kant and Nuns both penetrated that back line turned it into, I guess, a pseudo 3v3. It was Nuns and Kant that won their 3v3 in convincing fashion. Nuns picked up 3 kills. Mui stayed alive and got a couple of his own, which was still pretty threatening, but ultimately not enough members for Hong Kong Attitude to maintain their hold.
And the thing is, Mui on that soldier, it's one of those things like, if you're in position, if you're able to get into a safe enough position, it's going to do a ton of work. If you can't, it's really hard to get any work done at all. And it's a little bit feast or famine, right? In Hong Kong Attitude, you kind of saw that. The opening fight, they got exactly what they wanted to get out of Mui. Like, that's more what you want to get out of that soldier pick. After that, though, Machi did a very good job of shutting it down. It wasn't that he was dying first in the fight. It's just he was never in a good position to do much in the fight. He couldn't really affect a whole lot. If you're too busy trying to deal with Canton, Nuns, and D-Crown diving you, if you can't really get into a position so that they can't dive you safely, you can't be pumping out damage, you can't kill anyone who's diving you, you're just not going to get any work done.
And you saw in that second engagement as well, it was almost the polar opposite of how Hong Kong Attitude handled their initial fight, which is the first fight they played patiently. They said, we're going to let Machi dive into us, pull back, disengage, counter their divers, and go back in. And you always got to win that poke damage war because you have the soldier on Mui. The second fight around, though, was the opposite. Yeah. That was when Hong Kong Attitude went a little bit more forward, opened up their own backline against Machi, and then lost those members. But now Hong Kong Attitude, a chance to strike back. It's not going to be Hollywood just yet. Got to go to King's Row.
And that's the thing, they now get to go into the kind of maps they like to play, and I find it interesting, actually, that they're not going to Hollywood. I think that's just respecting the fact that they did end up dropping Hollywood to AHQ last night. Close fought as that was. I think they're just happy enough taking this one to King's Row. I have a feeling, though, they actually did lose King's Row to AHQ as well last night. So there's an, or actually, I believe it may have been Numbani. So never mind that. But at any rate, it's still a good game mode for them. It's still a good map for them. And if they are going to strike back hard, this is going to be where it would happen. What you definitely don't want is a close fought loss. That would be about the worst situation here for Hong Kong Attitude.
And this is where morale and confidence needs to be a real issue for Hong Kong Attitude as well. You're now one map down a series in what is potentially the most important series going into playoffs. This is what's going to secure your place in that playoffs, secure your place in third as well, which is the best possible place to be going into the playoffs. And it all could fall apart very quickly if they do not win here. The pressure cannot be getting to their heads or it's all over.
Exactly. You've just got to reset yourself. As far as you're concerned, the series starts now. You do not have that one loss on the board. It's just a slightly shorter series on the whole, and you need to win the next 3 maps. That's what you want to do from the start of a series anyway. So Hong Kong attitude. This is almost going to be a test of mental resilience as much as it is going to be a test of gameplay and skill, because this is what they've been working towards now since the midpoint of Season 1. To just fall short of the mark of making playoffs in your very last game of the season, that would be heartbreaking.
Just for a little bit of historical context here as well, the last time these two teams met, it was in fact on Hollywood, and that was a 1-0 hold, a full first cap hold for Hong Kong attitude. And we're now steering away from that, maybe still just rearing off the loss of the Hollywood last night against AHQ, feeling like it's going to be the King's Row pick instead. This kind of favors Hong Kong attitude in the sense that you're now allowed to bring out Randy Zaya, which we know has been pretty good, allows Hong Kong attitude to play the sort of the Junkrat composition that they have been practicing as well. Put Mui onto something like a Junkrat instead of the Genji, which unfortunately he got outplayed by Nuns' Genji, and maybe not even so much comfortable on the Soldier either.
And I mean, look, history is already being a little bit rewritten as well, right? Last time these teams met, Hong Kong attitude 3-0. They're already 0-1 down. Best they can hope for here is a 3-1. That would still be pretty good in its own right, but they kind of need to get that 3-1 now.
It's going to be a different composition out of Machi. It's going to be a slower one with Kent onto the Soldier. Not something we see very often. Slowed down already, though, with the Sleep Dart.
Hong Kong attitude are going to be attacking first, though, with a triple tank. And interesting that they're opting into attacking first. Also running Roadhog here. I've heard Roadhog recently described as a cockroach, and I felt that quite fitting because he just seems to be unkillable sometimes. But I tell you who is killable is No Talk's billion-dollar mech, fresh from South Korea. And that's going to be Hong Kong attitude set up on the point. Now, the pressure is on Machi to find a way to contest this. The Bionate is decent on Shaolin, but it's going to run out before it really affects him. Catch on D-Crown as he tries to pull back, and Machi just don't have the tanks to safely dive in. Nice hook on Kant as well. You're not getting away from here, buddy. And Hong Kong attitude looking set to grab the cap on their first push.
And who says Roadhog doesn't do enough damage? He's certainly doing enough damage against Machi right now, so much so that Hong Kong attitude are going to get this cap in their first attempt. And well played as well, because they are running a double shotgun composition, the kind of double shotgun composition which, once they get set up on the cap itself, how do Machi challenge this? None of their tanks can stand against both the shotguns. None of their other members can either, with even less health. So, Hong Kong attitude, they knew what their win condition was, and they did it.
And I'm really liking that this team is kind of recognizing how to successfully use the Hog. Machi are actually going to pop in one of their own as well, which means pulling Kant off the Soldier. So, we'll have to see how this works out for them.
It's like we're back in February all over again with Roadhog being a primary pick for both sides. The hooks, though, not quite as deadly. We'll have to see how everyone else favors.
And that's really the big one. Great Earth Shatter looking to get the closeout on No Talk, and the Nano Boost in onto Mui is all they need to close out that fight. 2 ultimates with the rest still up. That is great economy for Hong Kong attitude, and now huge momentum moving forward on the streets phase.
And a large gong sounding as well for Hong Kong attitude with Mui using that Nano Boost. Got himself a Death Blossom, so got to find a position where he can set up for this. Get a sneaky one. Drops down behind the Machi Esports side. This is going to be another full team wipe before Machi even know what hit him.
Machi also don't have them tools to scout up top there anyway. Mui has given his positioning away. Kant finds him. That's big. Takes that Death Blossom off the table, but Hong Kong attitude going to commit anyway. In with the self-destruct and the sound barrier, but not converting anything just yet. It's Nuns in the thick of it doing the work with his own Nano Boost now, and Kant still landing these hooks. Randy is going to be able to pull back, it seems, or actually maybe not. They're really going hard to run him down. Looks like he will get out. So only losing 2 members, not a bad way to lose a fight, but it is Machi with a chance now to stabilize.
And both teams are very keen to play the similar compositions, in fact, the same compositions against each other. At every junction, Nuns just wants to prove that he's better than Mui. And so far, he's been able to do that in League Jung. But who's going to be the better Reaper at the end of the day? Is it going to be Nuns? Is it going to be Mui? Here comes the Death Blossom.
And it doesn't really get much done, unfortunately. In fact, it goes down. That shield was just up from D-Crown, and they couldn't get past it. Now Nuns is going to be coming up on the cusp of his own Death Blossom. And again, Hong Kong attitude, despite only losing 1, are going to have to back off and lose more time.
This is a very good good place for Machi to hold as well. The spawn does favor them ever so slightly here. They have the cart as cover if they want to use it, and they have a lot of close range options, and I guess so does Hong Kong Attitude, but the power does swing in the favor of Machi because they're getting closer, much closer to their ultimates.
Man, you remember the days of triple tank, huh? Look, Machi needing to get this Earth Shatter out now, but Hong Kong Attitude can match with one of their own. That's a great dive. Ting able to pop the shield up and they get topped off, but that's the Earth Shatter plus the whole hog.
Good
Not
sleep.
quite any kills just converted yet, and yeah, good sleep. Now there's an opportunity for Hong Kong Attitude to try and get aggressive in their own right, but both teams just lean for ultimates aside from this Death Blossom.
Good damage control by Hong Kong Attitude. They shut down the ultimate usages from the Machi side, but it's not all over just yet because Nun's still got one more weapon left in the back pocket.
Oh, there he goes, right into the corner, but he's just not closed it out. Randy's mech is the only casualty so far, and Nun's just having a gentleman's duel with Mui, but they have lost Randy in this, and Hong Kong Attitude haven't actually struck back yet. D-Crown into the thick, good charge on Mui. Good sleep stops them from doing anything more, and they may just be able to pull back thanks to that, but they still lost 3 members and a lot of ultimates in that fight.
And that's the thing, because Machi actually laid out a trap. They used up all their ultimates. Hong Kong Attitude thought it was safe. They were going to go back in and saying, okay, this is now our time. They just blew all of their weapons out. We're going to go in. In fact, it wasn't the right time. Machi, they were waiting in line. They got the charge kills from D-Crown. And actually, despite not having ultimates, they did even better using ultimates.
Man, we get to go back to something real old school that we used to talk about a lot with Hong Kong Attitude, and that's Reinhardt Discipline. D-Crown about to have that Earth Shatter up. A Ting needs to be the core of the team to block it, but he doesn't. That's 4 members. That is not Reinhardt Discipline at all. I think the shield may have actually been cracked before that, but at any rate, that is a wipe save for Randy. Exactly the kind of hold Machi need.
An interesting thing here is it's always Mui that feels like he has to be the one to try and counter this. Mui's just never really comfortable. Doesn't matter what he starts on. Nunn suddenly goes on Reaper and is like, well, I'm not going to play the same thing as you. He's going to go onto the Mei because Mei naturally does have a bit of a soft counter towards the triple tank. You have a good job of here, especially in the narrow parts of the streets phase. We can just block off certain tanks on the Machi side and get easy pickups. So far, though, we're not seeing the evidence of it.
Searching for a wraparound, self-destruct, catches a Ting! And Randy's going to lose the mech as well. Again, if you want to talk about low econ fights, one for what was basically a fight win instantly, this is massive now for Machi. They've kept so many ultimates on the way up to this, what will be the final fight, and Hong Kong Attitude barely have any of their own.
This is going to be a compositional swap out now. Shailin and Mui both going to diving heroes. Going to maybe even see a Ting and Randy change as well. Well, Randy's already on the Diva, so he's set up. A Ting probably doesn't want to lose his Earth Shatter here, so they're going to have to get a lot of mileage, because otherwise, this is a full hold. 34 seconds now remaining and counting down. Machi looking like they're going to do it.
A lot of squishy members here that can die very easily to a Death Blossom. And because of where the cart has been able to push back to, even if Hong Kong Attitude win this one, Machi will probably be able to get a last-ditch defense before the cap goes through and B anyway. So now Hong Kong Attitude really need to make some magic happen.
And Machi are playing quite forward as well, which is smart because they don't want any Hong Kong Attitude members to touch that cart. In fact, the cart's moved back enough that it doesn't matter anyway. Now we're going to get the intense
The Earth Shatter whiffs. The Ting throws it straight into D-Crown. Shield does at least block most of the Death Blossom, but there's still plenty of damage out of Machi here with that whole hog running, with all these damage tools out, and all they've got now is a self-destruct as Mui goes down. Randy, he's got to throw it out. He's got to make it happen. D-Crown, his dead as well here. That's the only thing that Hong Kong Attitude have got in this one. Randy, nothing for the self-destruct just yet. Does get back in the mech, but they pick off Shailin anyway, and Machi is still very much in control. D-Crown's going to be able to rejoin the team. And Ting and Randy working overtime to try and keep this one alive, but they just can't do it. They keep getting closed out, and they won't get back on the cart at all, and also did not get that B cap either.
Now suddenly, the nightmare scenario for Hong Kong Attitude, looking in the potential face of a second map loss. And Machi could not be feeling better about the situation right now. What was originally in week 3 a first point hold on Hollywood against Machi is now a second point hold against Hong Kong Attitude and Kings Row. Something that they're now threatening to fully take this map away from.
And that's the thing. Look, maybe this is the matchup of turnarounds. Maybe this is ultimately everyone turning around on Hong Kong Attitude at the end. It's AHQ finally beating them after suffering several losses to Hong Kong Attitude. It's what was a 2-0 victory for Hong Kong Attitude on Control, becoming an 0-2 loss here to Machi. And now, like you said, going from first holding Hollywood to getting second held on Kings Row, and it was an incredible hold too. Like, at no point did Hong Kong Attitude ever get the upper hand of Machi after that card initially got stopped up. Now they've got a monumental defense ahead of them. They cannot give up an inch.
And the point you really want to look at here is the fact that Machi are consistently able to match what Hong Kong Attitude is able to do in terms of compositions, in terms of strategy. We're going to run the same thing you're going to run, and we're going to do it even better than you're going to do it. And that's been consistent now across 2 maps on Lijiang. Machi ran the same Tracer Genji as Hong Kong Attitude, or rather in that case, it was Hong Kong Attitude trying to then match what Machi was already doing. Now coming into Kings Row, it's Machi, they're adapting to what they saw out of Hong Kong Attitude. They said, we can run the Hog, we can run the Reaper, and they did do it better.
And the thing is, you don't want to end up 0-2 down, because that's going to feel like a case of deja vu, right? Yesterday, that's where they were against AHQ. They nearly rescued the series. It was a close series, but it was a lost series. You don't want to have that at the back of your mind, that suddenly you have to win every single game or you lose the series, especially when that series loss may just mean no playoffs for you.
We've got Mui back onto the McCree now, so this is pretty exciting. We've seen a lot of really good plays out of Mui on the McCree earlier on in the season, and now at the end of the season, might just get a treat again.
Needs to get a lot of pressure onto Kiyomi and Kant, especially with that hit scan. That's really the key thing for them. Good displacement onto a Ting. No one dead just yet either side.
This is good read by Mui though. Good read by Hong Kong Attitude to sort of see what kind of composition Hamachi may be expected to run. And Mui going onto a more direct counter. They are losing the spam fight though, because it is still Nuns lobbying down those grenades straight into the archway section of Machi. They're getting a foothold.
And it's kind of the way it's going right now with all that charge on Randy. They've got kind of a window to get aggressive, but the pick on Shaolin makes it hard. They don't have any more spam damage on their own side of things, which means Randy alone kind of has to get a lot of work done. Good catch onto Kiyomi, and now they're able to get some work done. Nano boost onto a Ting, though, as he goes down, and this is still point time for Machi. Hong Kong Attitude need to contest. They haven't. Now they're way too far forward, way too few members, and Machi look to get aggressive, want to get the route, picking up CQB, looking to try and get Randy as well. In fact, they don't even need to get it. They can actually just get the payload underway, let Randy run out of charge and bide their time.
It was a slow fight from both sides, but ultimately Nuns outplayed Shaolin. It was the only thing still keeping Hong Kong Attitude in that spam war was Shailin's Junkrat. As soon as he went down, Nuns pushed forward, Kant pushed forward. Mui couldn't punish either Kant or the Kiyomi on the pharmacy combo, so now Machi Esports, they got everything working for them, taking down a Ting in the steel trap as well. Just Hong Kong Attitude just have to give up all their space, and the worst part is, Randy, despite being at 100 charge, couldn't find that Graviton, didn't even charge it.
He's got it now, but that Junkrat tire taking a Ting out of the picture, and the Rocket Barrage just drilling down these members of Hong Kong Attitude who are now so split as Kant goes aggressive onto these backliners. Mui too, and he and D-Crown are even going to get Mango Jive for good measure. Machi, that might just be it. Hong Kong Attitude only have one last chance.
Quad rockets and a quad kill as well. Kant did so much damage there, and there's still a res. Even if Machi fall down here, even if Hong Kong Attitude gets some sort of wipe, as long as Kiyomi's alive, he can bring these members back. It's looking so bad now for Hong Kong Attitude.
They're already staggered as they get to the point, but at least they get the sound barrier to steer them in. Randy's still low though, and like you said, that res is still a factor. The self-destruct out from no talk. They pick Randy's mech. Great catch on Kant in the Deadeye, but they need to get more. Hong Kong Attitude, they're still falling down, and the tempo res onto Kant to keep him in the fight. Doesn't matter that they lose those 2 more, because there's no one left for Hong Kong Attitude. Machi are indeed gonna do it, flipping that script. 2-0 up now in the series.
This is aggressive. This is commanding from Machi Esports. Hong Kong Attitude, you got to ask the questions. What is happening to this team ever since their loss last evening? This team has just gotten, it's just falling further and further from grace. What started as a brilliant run, 3rd place in the standings, to now potentially not even getting into playoffs, and if they do, in the worst seed.
This would be disastrous for Hong Kong Attitude. Like I said, this is something that has been brewing since halfway through Season 1. They beat AHQ twice in a row, but couldn't get into playoffs because there was just too many wins difference because of the length of that season. Now they're in this situation where they came out the gate starting at that level. They came out swinging, quickly getting into that top 4 kind of position, but it has still been in contention. And now the second win for all these other teams may have been enough to overcome Hong Kong Attitude and stop them just shy of of finally achieving what they couldn't in Season 1. 0-2 down now in the series. Machi, like we said, this would be the perfect capstone for what has otherwise been a very disappointing season for this team.
This would be an invigorating win for them as well. A win that really says and sends the message of we're still in this, not in terms of actual standings, but in terms of their life as a team, in terms of what they can show and prove as a team. We said this at the top of the match, but going into 2018, Machi moving forward as a unit, this needs to be where they get invigorated and where they get that second win and a breath of life.
Exactly. This has got to be your end of season calling card, right? We'll be back. You best be ready. Down but not out is Machi 2-0 up. Wow. I mean, we knew this was going to be a massive night no matter how you sliced it, but I mean, this as a start is incredible. If Hong Kong Attitude do go down 0-3, I don't even know if they can make playoffs at that point.
Well, they'll be at 26 and 26. Blank Esports will need to get a win. In fact, if they do get a win, they're definitely in. But AHQ going to remain in there as well with a loss. They're at 27 and 24, so I guess it would say, yeah, Hong Kong Attitude need to pick up at least one map win.
I think, though, with this 0-2 down, I'm pretty sure it's guaranteed that if they do make playoffs, they no longer can make that third place to play Flash Wolves. You would have to take Ardiant, and you've got to be realistic. You would rather take on Flash Wolves. Ardiant, despite starting to get challenged a little bit more, picking up a few more map losses, still undefeated in series wins. Let's go ahead and take a look at some replays, though, of Kings Row. Take a look at exactly how it's all happening for Hong Kong Attitude.
And this was the fight sort of in the middle here in the B section. Earthshatter from both sides, but it is the Earthshatter from D-Crown that connects with far more. A good sleep dart, though, from Mango Giant does stop up Kant's whole hog there, so a little bit of respite for the team. This does allow Hong Kong Attitude to come in for a second fight, but it's not just over yet because Nun's still holding onto the Death Blossom. The bio nade against Hong Kong Attitude does force him back into the corner as well. Nun's looking for an opening and didn't find anything, but this has to be where the turnaround is because Hong Kong Attitude believed that Machi were out of gas, believed that Machi had nothing left to use, but it's D-Crown, still picking up kills.
And that's the thing, the Death Blossom was kind of the ace up the sleeve, right? Because there was a huge Earthshatter out of a Ting that they just couldn't quite follow up on. The Sleep Dart totally saved that moment. They had committed their own Earthshatter as well, though, so actually, they didn't exactly have any resources of their own, but you kind of end up in this situation where you're like, oh, we slept the Reaper, he wasn't able to do damage, and you forget that that means he didn't get to commit the Death Blossom either, because he had the
They slept the whole hog.
Actually, you maybe I had a feeling it was...
They slept Cant on the whole hog.
At any rate, the Nano Boost was out on Nuns, and they were looking for that Nano Blossom combo there. But the thing is, look, it was still just a factor. It was still on the table. They'd weathered a bit of the storm, but they hadn't weathered all of it, and it was just a couple of little things. Ultimately, once that Bionade and Death Blossom was committed, it wasn't enough to get kills, but it was enough to backfoot Hong Kong Attitude positionally, enough that Machi could get those closeouts after the fact. And it meant that both teams were totally exhausted for resources, but Hong Kong Attitude had been unequivocally stopped up by that point.
Yeah, starved up for resources, but the team that comes out on top gets to reap the benefits of that, and the team that doesn't come out on top, unfortunately, is very far behind because they didn't convert any of the resource expenditure on actual progression in terms of objective, whereas the defending team, Machi, they were able to. And that cart continued rolling back. It rolled up a lot further, almost to the point of it was nearing the pub again, around the corner of that pub, and into the overtime section. It was even a case of the fact that it was so far back, even if Hong Kong Attitude won, they would have to fight another defense from the Machi side.
Yeah, and that's even is just not good enough when you're on the attack there, unfortunately, and that combined with a ton of extremely cheap fight wins for Machi had them with a pretty ironclad defense and a pretty convincing attack as well, putting them 2-0 up.
Now, with that 2-0 lead, Hong Kong Attitude's tournament hopes may be extinguished, but not quite just yet. A small flame is still flickering for this team. We'll have to find out exactly who comes out on top after this break. Thank you for sticking through that break with us as we're now heading into map 3 of the Machi versus Hong Kong Attitude Series. So far, Machi are leading 2-0 up, and no, we can't believe it either.
No, we really can't. We were just trying to math this one out as well. I believe Hong Kong Attitude, if they pick up 2 wins, they may just barely be safe. An 0-3 here, I think, is a guaranteed out, and I cannot do the math on what a 3-1 means. I'm still trying to work that one out. 3 minutes wasn't enough time to do all that math, and it's like it's only simple addition. I don't know what's gone wrong, but Machi now at match point plus home side pick get to take it to Temple of Anubis. There's kind of no good place to take Hong Kong Attitude here. They are a good assault team. Temple of Anubis, once upon a time, was a bit of a specialty of theirs. More recently, they preferred Volskaya. But Volskaya against AHQ was a little bit of a rough one last night, so, I mean, heck, you never really know, right? Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but at any rate, Machi, given the performance on the other maps, this has got to feel within striking distance on Temple here.
And again, for historical context here, the last time these two teams met up, it was Volskaya, and that was a draw that ended up on a golden cap that went to Oasis, of which Hong Kong Attitude won. So Volskaya doesn't even feel that convincing for either side, to be honest, based on that, and then especially based off last night, it's not probably a place that much you want to be at right now.
And the thing is, if we do end up in actually the same situation where we go to Golden Point, look, last time we went to Golden Point, Hong Kong Attitude won that, and they had 2-0'd on the control. This time around, it would be Golden Point with Machi having 2-0'd on the control map earlier in the series. So you've got to question Hong Kong Attitude's ability to even turn it around if it goes to Golden Point. Certainly, that would be about as back-footed as you can possibly get. So, can Machi stay ahead of the lead here on Temple of Anubis?
3-0 sweep against Hong Kong Attitude would probably be the biggest statement that Machi can close this tournament out with, short of actually beating someone like Flash Wolves or Ardium. This has been now the 3rd best team they're playing up against. And so far, they're doing a fantastic job. Technically, now Hong Kong Attitude are in 4th after AHQ's win yesterday. So, yeah, still though, a playoffs contention team.
Well, it's funny, they were in 4th because they were tied for map difference. Both were at +3, but AHQ technically had more total map wins by 1. That's how marginal this is coming down to, by the way, at the very end here of the season. Hong Kong Attitude, like we said, they desperately need at least some map wins here to keep it alive. And even then, it's not going to be comfortable because it's going to be dependent on how the blank AHQ series plays out. An 0-3 loss would be disastrous.
It's certainly a difficult place for Hong Kong Attitude to be, and we talked about the fact that morale and mentality has to be an issue here, has to be a factor here to be considered for Hong Kong Attitude, because Machi are on a high. But for Hong Kong Attitude, they should know and they need to know tournament lives are not over just yet, but it could just be if they don't win.
That's really all it's going to come down to. It's got to be the win. It's the attack first as well. Running on this Genji and Tracer setup. Something that they've had limited success with, but something they have had success with in the past, certainly. So, I'll just see how it pays off for them here, where it's really going to matter.
And is it going to be Nuns taking down Mui again? Nuns consistently outshone Mui on the Jung Tower, but it's Temple of Anubis now. Different setting, different map, a different opportunity.
Good DMAC on No Talk, blocking him from getting to that hacked health pack there. That's a nice kind of open, but they've still got to commit off the back of it. Make sure they keep it Ting alive, make sure Machi can't just pull back to that health pack. They've done a good job of it so far, kind of splitting up the positioning of Machi. Catch on Restia as well. EMP is a factor though, and there it comes straight in, but Nuns is too low to do anything with it, and D-Crown is going to be the next casualty after that EMP out. Mui now trying to keep this health pack on lockdown. They just want to kill off No Talk. There's going to be the catch, closing out on Nuns as well. That's the kind of push Hong Kong Attitude need here.
And it's a smooth push as well because they didn't really lose anybody. In fact, they even got the EMP out of Kiyomi. That's going to now affect Machi's ability to set up for B. And for Hong Kong Attitude, the potential for Snowball is definitely there. Mui nearly on Dragon Blade, double support ultimates, a Pulse Bomb as well as further ultimate resets on the Machi side because Can't changed heroes.
Yeah, the one good thing there with Can changing heroes, at least as far as Machi are concerned, is now it's just honestly extra that Hong Kong Attitude have to deal damage to. They don't have a nano boost to combo out with the Genji or anything. They just have to kill these tanks the old-fashioned way with that Orb of Discord. And that's already the commit with the Dragon Blade and Transcendence. Not quite finding their end just yet. Now Nun's able to commit in kind. It is on top of Hong Kong Attitude's sound barrier. And Smago getting the first pick, but Nun's able to trade one back is plenty enough does go down. Machi just need trades here, and then rides the respawn advantage through, but Hong Kong Attitude, that's another good trade for themselves. Damage is still potentially here. Mui gets another good one, and they're just keeping him so well topped off. Gets Restia as well. May be able to get a third off this. The kills haven't been super quick though. Nice deflect on most of the whole hog, actually pushes Kant further back. Mui keeps getting pressured here. Not dead just yet, but they may just fall short of this third as well. Even in catching nuns, this is still just not over.
EMP now coming out as well, and the sound barrier from Restia. And this should spell the retreat for Hong Kong Attitude because they have run out of firepower. Mui's gone down, and Mui was the only one really getting the kills, and Shylin died rather early in that engagement. And the biggest mistake for Hong Kong Attitude, and probably the core reason why they didn't get that third, is their opening ultimates got no value. You had a very early Transcendence, no kills out of that. An early Dragon Blade, no kills out of that. And Mui, feeling the pressure, goes on to the Reaper. This has been consistent now across the entire match tonight. Mui consistently feeling like he's not performing on certain heroes and having to change.
And he did actually hover onto the McCree there as well, but also Hong Kong Attitude, for how protracted that fight was, couldn't get that third either. They just never had enough kills at the right times. Hong Kong Attitude now looking for the next opening, going to be fighting into the EMP, needing to find their way in. There comes the EMP, trying to just last it out though, because they got the Transcendence, but they lose CQB. That means no sound barrier, and Randy doesn't get to commit his own self-destruct, losing his mech to that one. Hong Kong Attitude, they're trying to fight this one out to get a third, but losing Mui means they still can't get that.
They just couldn't fight through the EMP there. Shylin getting a hack was probably one of the most important ones that Machi were able to get a hack on. Nothing came out of the Hong Kong Attitude offense. Still waiting for a couple ultimates to get back in line. CQB now, with that now sound barrier, does give a little bit more sustain, but Nuns and Kant are ready to strike as well. And unfortunately, Mui's not.
Yeah, and that's really the one they need. He's a little bit EMP resistant, I suppose. I mean, even with that EMP out, he can't use the death.
Electric shielding.
Yeah, he needs to get, I don't know, something. He needs to get something done here, right? It's hard to actually deal damage to a Roadhog when they're constantly pushing you back. That's going to be the EMP straight onto Mango Jai. Looking to catch CQB as well. All the members of Hong Kong Attitude stuck as they were in the setup there. Instant close out. And that's one ultimate used for a near team wipe. Looking to get the stagger on Randy as well. Indeed, they may just. There it goes out. Last shot, last shuriken. That's rough.
And that's doing great wonders for the ultimate economy of Machi, who, by the way, Kiyomi just used EMP, already on 63 now with everyone healing up, using the hacked health packs. You haven't even used the big weapons of Nuns and Kant's ultimate yet. You now have tank ultimates available. Restia still sitting on a sound barrier. And as soon as CQB and Mango Jai went down, that was the end of Hong Kong Attitude's push. After both supports are gone, you have no sustain, and there's no possibility of you pushing in forward.
Hong Kong Attitude now. They're still just staring down this huge uptime out of Machi, who have committed so few ultimates each and every time. Less than 3 minutes now means you can't even really just play for thirds. You've got to get it in one go.
Oh, EMP again, but it gets shut down.
That's a big one. That's what they need. But they lose these members anyway to the combined efforts of Nuns and D-Crown, thanks to the damage from the whole hog. It makes for easy closeouts for the rest of Machi. And wow, that's rough for Hong Kong Attitude. Stopping up that one ultimate that swung so many of these fights, but still losing to just one of the other many ultimates Machi could have used.
And that's the thing, right? Because for the first time now in this offense, Hong Kong Attitude are making Machi sweat a little bit. They forced the EMP out, but they did get the kill into Kiyomi. Kant had to use the whole hog as well, and Randy didn't get staggered out with losing his mech. This is going to allow Hong Kong Attitude to get a re-push in when EMP is not a factor. And finally, you may see the commit from the double support ultimates, and that might just be the tools that Hong Kong Attitude actually need here.
Part of the uptime for these EMPs has actually been the fact that it's triple tanked. There's so many more people using these health packs to great effect. Great catch on Mui. Traders there on Restia, but that's still good for Machi in the start here. Randy, he needs to get the self-destruct up, but Ting at least gets one, and they get one with the pulse bomb as well. No conversion just yet on the EMP. They still haven't got that third, and Machi still have the stall tools in the form of that sound barrier, plus that, primal rage from D-Crown. They're trying to commit it onto the point now. Has to pull back to the health pack, but able to stay alive and take down Shylin as he pulls back. Now a Ting loses his life, and they still hold on to it. Hong Kong Attitude, even when they're trading ultimates, even when they're trading kills, they're just never getting ahead in the fight. fights.
Once again, the target selection is key here for Machi because they got CQB and they got Mango Jai. A Ting soloed Mango Jai into the corner. You saw a situation where Shailin wanted to try and save Mango Jai, but it just was too late. As soon as you lose both supports, all of your sustain is gone. As soon as both the sustain is gone, you're not going to cap out the point. You're not going to survive against all the respawn waves of Machi, and indeed, they don't even get 1/3.
This is looking pretty rough. Hong Kong Attitude, they have to do it in one push, and now this is coming to be their last opportunity to get that push. Kiyomi already trying to sniff out their positioning. There they go under the bridge. He spotted them. Knows he can't quite pull back to
Needs the
that.
supports.
Yeah, needs the supports. But they've been able to commit into the mix there anyway. Not quite getting the conversion. Oh, there, never mind. They're getting straight through. Nuns could get the Dragon Blade out, but honestly, making it happen even more cheaply than that is
see you,
pretty
Randy.
great. This is nuts. The amount of work they're doing without having to commit ultimates on top of the EMPs is so efficient for Machi.
This is absolutely disgusting what Machi are able to show here, but now the opening for Hong Kong Attitude. We talk about the fact that they need to get this in one push. This has to be that one push now. Kiyomi does not have an EMP just yet, neither does Mango Jai, but Mango is at least a little bit closer. You have ultimates to use here, you have a few seconds to get it in there, and Machi, this is where they have to hold, and Hong Kong Attitude have to push.
Overtime or bust, right? An instant aggression from Machi. They immediately convert. Nuns gets 2, wanting more just to close it out. He wants to be the alpha and omega of this game. D-Crown gets 1 though, and this is where Machi can just throw all those ultimates at it, feeling secure in the fight. When Mango, nice looking EMP, but just too little, too late. No third for Hong Kong Attitude, and now Machi have put it right within striking distance.
Yeah, EMP at the end there for Mango Jai as well, just for show. It's got the flare of the fireworks. It looks pretty, but it does no damage. It's got no explosion in it, and certainly Hong Kong Attitude have no explosion in this team, unless you count for the fact that internally it looks like it is exploding in the bad way.
This is rough. This is rough for Hong Kong Attitude is what it is. And honestly, what we've got to go back to is this notion of Hong Kong Attitude having worked so hard for so long. And as much as this is a team that was tied for 3rd and may just not make playoffs now, but prior to this, they were basically in that 3rd place against a team currently in 7th place. The other point of record you've actually got to look at between these teams is the wins that they actually traded across Season 1, because they were the 2 teams competing for that 4th place finish. And I believe it was Hong Kong Attitude who ultimately earned it, but it was always coming down really close. So in a way, it's sort of like no matter what happens in the interim, it is still going to come down to these 2 teams battling and brawling it out to the last and kind of playing spoiler to each other.
And by the way, Hong Kong Attitude with 3rd place heading into the 2nd round robin in the most convincing fashion, in that they were losing to Flashfalls, but they did beat AHQ, they did beat Blank, and now potentially not even beating Machi. And you have to wonder, it is an unfortunate place for Hong Kong to be in, but you have to celebrate the fact that for Machi, this is absolutely fantastic. That this late in the tournament is the only thing to kind of, the sad point about it is this late into the tournament, but otherwise, it's a great place to be in for this team.
I mean, it's, you know, it's a second wind when you're already last in the sailboat race, but you're still happy to have it, right? Look, anything that looks good for Machi, anything that is a positive takeaway, counts for something. That something won't come to fruition until next year at the very least, but like we said before, this is the kind of send-off you want to give Season 2.
It's not quite over just yet, and Hong Kong Attitude might have something left in the bank, or left in the tank even, to show us and to show Machi. If they can manage to hold, if they can get a good A here, really pushing the overtime, potentially even hold this one out completely, Machi will have to bite their tongues.
Kind of talked about that golden point situation. I mean, maybe that's the most feasible thing here for Hong Kong Attitude. Try and push it to golden point. Shailin, first casualty of the fight. Good trade back on Restia, but they're not getting much else for it either, and the pressure is there onto these tanks. A Ting kind of struggling to pull back safely enough, and Kiyomi on the point now with an EMP to commit when they need it. Randy loses the mech. There's the EMP trying to convert. They get Mui and close out on Randy. Now it's just a Ting without these healers to help him out. CQB to be the last casualty in the cap. A cap going to happen just like that for Machi. All they need now, as soon as they convert this, is that single third of B.
That is a commanding push now from Machi, but it was also one from Hong Kong Attitude. Don't forget, Hong Kong Attitude had a great run-in from camping A into B. They just couldn't get that conversion in. Now Machi already getting quite deep, already now threatening to get those kills. Count was trying to stop Mui from getting the initial hack onto the Mega Pack below the bridge. Machi coming with a little bit of momentum. Not enough ultimates to really take this one home, so they're going to have to rely on pickouts.
Because they will maybe be able to get an EMP in time. Mui certainly won't. That's what Machi can just kind of hold out for. They can just back it up for a moment, get that last resource up, and I mean, you saw how well it worked with the defense. Maybe that's all they'll need on the offense too.
Still waiting a decent amount of time here. They only need to camp 1/3, but they need to actually do that. So far, just waiting on Kiyomi, and they're going to have to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's pretty ideal for them, and they're able to keep Randy topped off here, Hong Kong Attitude. This is the kind of begin they want. Allows them to kind of jumpstart that EMP economy that Machi used against them to such great effect. Trying to get the route here as well with the sleep on Kant. That's going to be a guaranteed kill. That's pretty nice for Hong Kong Attitude.
Man, that is rough looking at that. Yeah, Kant just waiting there, but it's now Machi going to come back in with the EMP they've been waiting on. The worst part is, actually, it's given Mui enough time and enough space to get potentially his own EMP in response. So as soon as Kiyomi does use it, Mui, as long as he stays alive, as long as he stays safe, should be able to come in and respawn rather. And CQB even, with the sound barrier, has the potential to counter.
That's going to be the target prioritization, right? EMP out and close on Mui. Dekran has to Primal Rage to stay alive. They haven't long committed. Kiyomi goes down, all these K-words, and that means Machi may not be able to do this one for what they have committed so far, and smartly not going to commit any more. Actually, they did get a Primal Rage there from D-Crown, but at any rate, Hong Kong Attitude secure the hold. Looking to get the stagger on No Talk, will be successful in that one. Just more time off the clock.
And what was a potential momentum push from Machi is starting to turn into a bit of a disaster. They're losing time, they're losing members. No Talk's going to have to reset his entire mech, resetting his entire ultimate charge. And Machi are just losing out on opportunity as well. What they do get is a lack of EMP on the Hong Kong Attitude side because we already used it. So they have to make the one from Kiyomi count. And we've been waiting for this one EMP from Kiyomi for what feels like 2.5 fights now.
You got to compliment the target prioritization from Hong Kong Attitude as well. As much as Machi needed to shut down Mui, they needed to keep Kiyomi alive, but Hong Kong Attitude are constantly getting on top of him. There goes the EMP out this time. Instant loss of nuns, though, makes it hard to convert. They get Randy's mech. They need to get a lot more than just that as they lose Kiyomi once again. And it's that target selection from Hong Kong Attitude. They're just all over these members of Machi that could be closing out on the EMP. And now again, going to look to route them, look to get those late kills and the stagger, look to get even more time off the clock. And now next time, they'll have their own EMP.
Now this is Kiyomi changing up to the Reaper. They're feeling the pressure of Mui on the Sombra pick so far, and Hong Kong Attitude looking very comfortable despite being so far down, despite now facing potential defeat. They look like they've been reinvigorated themselves, ready to hold this cap for another 3 minutes and 40 seconds, forcing that draw, forcing that golden point.
It is still a long time, as good as these defenses have been. It's a long time to hold out an entire third fall. Pulse bomb in. Doesn't quite get No Talk's mech, but the extra damage does. It's the EMP commit from Mui, and that's what they need to commit off as Nuns goes down. Kiyomi trying to get the work done on the Reaper, but he's just going to have to pull back and retreat as Shailin looking to get these closeout kills at the back end of the fight. Machi don't have a clean retreat path this time. It's kind of route or bust.
This is a lot of losses for Machi, and the biggest thing they lose is all this time. They just still haven't gotten progress. They still haven't really touched the cap itself. That was probably the closest they've had to actually touching the cap, and even then, it's not quite enough. Machi, they're losing a bit of this mojo, and that's a real shocker this deep into the series.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want this to be the turning point for yourself and Hong Kong Attitude. As much as they're 0-2 down, they'd be happy with any kind of turning point. Good hook, no closeout on Mui, though. Good defense matrix to stop it. Now Kant needs to find his in. The sound barrier gets them onto the point, and he's just trying to find the right target. The sound barrier making it hard. Kiyomi back awake and looking to get the Death Blossom in the middle of the fight. A little bit low, though. Needs to be careful of the damage because they're just losing these members. He doesn't have a support to top him off. And now Machi are really starting to hurt for having only the Lucio here. They can't keep all these tanks alive. They just keep getting beaten back.
And a minute and a half ago we said, look, is this Hong Kong Attitude potentially holding this one out completely, forcing that draw? And suddenly it looks more and more possible for this Hong Kong Attitude side. Another EMP available. Machi, they just haven't got any mileage, losing ultimates every time they push as well. The sound barrier is now off the table. D-Crown as well, where's that Primal Rage? It's not going to happen. They got to rely on a lot of damage here, but not enough sustain.
Shaolin looking to get the wrap around to find some kind of pulse bomb on the backside. EMP out from Mui. No conversion just yet, but again, Machi with only the one healer. It's hard to keep all these tanks topped off as the damage starts coming out. The Death Blossom does convert one, but the damage is still here from Hong Kong Attitude. Nuns, though, getting another. And they're just not dead yet. Despite getting so low, a Ting gets to Primal Rage, and they do trade one back, but now Hong Kong Attitude lean on members. Shaolin and Mui are now the low ones, and Machi have just barely kept these tanks topped off. Can't nearly at a whole hog. They do lose Kiyomi, though. All they need is that third, but Hong Kong Attitude still get the respawns, and they've still got these DPSs in the fight, but that's Shaolin down. No Talk gets Mango, and now the whole hog as well. They might have just done it. They might have cleaned up the members, but they're not quite getting them, and it's No Talk losing the mech. It's all these members just respawning in from Hong Kong Attitude. It's just too much for Machi to overcome, not without that healer not being there. Nuns does get a couple, but it's just not quite enough, and now even less time, even less ultimates, and all these change-ups just starting to cost Machi.
That was the best fight so far for Machi. That was one where they really pushed Hong Kong Attitude. Forced CQB to change onto the Reaper himself, got Mui out of the picture, got Shaolin out of the picture, and all it took was for Rissia to keep himself alive and use the sound barrier, and that might have been the cap out. So for Hong Kong Attitude, at least they knew where the targets were, and they got the correct one. Nun's got to come back in with the Pharaoh now. Is this going to work? That's the big question.
And the thing that's still going to potentially hurt them is the fact that they've still only got the one healer. They're still fighting into that EMP. Still got Shaolin who can get the pulse bomb on the backside. Machi, they've got to find the magic, got to make it happen. Looking to get in and go now, but the EMP out. Good sound barrier saves a few. There's the conversion onto Shaolin. Machi still very much in this one, but they do lose Nuns even as he gets Mango Giant. Mui still in the fight. Machi low on members. They need to get a lot more in as Randy splits them up a little bit. And Ting as well, splitting them up even more with that Primal Rage. And Machi getting a couple here, but losing a couple. And you know what happens when you're trading as the attacker. Mui's still in this, getting all this damage. Trying to pull back, but he can't use the take a breather. He's hacked. And all the kills now coming through for Hong Kong Attitude at the last moment when it counts. Going to take it to a golden point. It may just be their only chance to turn it around, but you are happy to have at least that chance.
Don't forget, Hong Kong Attitude have been in this position before. Only last night they were 2 maps down against AHQ, and then they turn it around and against Machi now, and they're about to turn this run, or at least they're starting to turn this run. It's not quite over until they can win the golden cap, but if they do, then you are seeing a Hong Kong Attitude that has the capability, has the historic legacy of being able to bring it all the way.
The only thing we do have to go back to, last time these two teams went to Assault, they drew and went to golden cap. It was Hong Kong Attitude that won it, but the other thing I kind of brought up before we hit Temple of Anubis was when Hong Kong Attitude won that golden point, they had also won the control during that series, had won it 2-0. This time it's actually the reverse. Machi won the control. They also won it 2-0. It wasn't even particularly close. There were some good moments for Hong Kong Attitude. So actually, this is the opportunity to turn it around for Hong Kong Attitude, don't get me wrong, but they're still kind of on the back foot here. And as much as history suggests they win golden point, if you look at it in terms of their performance most recently on Control, which is of course the game mode for Golden Point, you've still actually got to say now, right here in this series, Machi are the favors coming into this.
Machi should feel that way, but unfortunately Hong Kong Attitude just had such a great showing right in the second half of the Temple of Anubis. You almost got to say, if it was Machi in a more of a dominating position, had more dominating fights, was the fact that Machi only had one good fight in that entire attack for themselves. I guess you could say the same thing about Hong Kong Attitude, but that would place both the teams a lot more even than previously considered, considering still the opening stages of this entire series on Lijiang Tao. But it's all going to end, at least the third map that is, on Ilios.
Interesting place for it to go to as well. And as I suppose a final note, as it were, on Temple of Anubis, certainly neither team was able to get even a third of that point, but it did feel that the defenses for Machi were just a lot cleaner. More when you look in terms of how little they had to commit for each one and how much they had left to use at the end. But that's a different time, a different place. And this is where it's really going to matter now. Can Machi keep it up just for one last little bit, or can Hong Kong Attitude begin the turnaround and the reverse sweep to keep playoffs alive?
That's right, because it did feel a lot more stable for Machi, it did feel a lot more dominant for Machi, and this is going to be Mui and the Hong Kong Attitude squad coming out expecting a Nuns Pharah, but now going to be receiving a Nuns Genji instead.
Well, At least it's Nun's blades, not Nun's rockets. But definitely not Nun's guns.
And Nuns has been doing much better with the blades as well. I just have to say it's been far more consistent. And look, he's had a previous interview where he said, look, this is my best pick, and you know, it's shown. It's shown why this has been Nuns' best pick. He's had so much impact on the Genji, and it's not over just yet for him.
Both teams are kind of jostling around the point right now. Mui trying to get some good sight lines, but Machi are kind of doing a good job keeping away from them. But eventually someone's got to make the move. Someone's got to turn this into pressure and then turn that pressure into kills. It looks like Hong Kong Attitude are the ones who want to get proactive as they start to move Mui into the main area around the well. Nuns, though, looking to get in for the flank. High risk, could be high reward, and it is the reward as the follow-up is there to get these members down. That's 3, and now 4 as they get Randy's mech looking to close out on the man himself. He goes down, and that is a pretty convincing fight as long as it took to get in position. Once they were in, Machi commit.
It looks like a similar story to what we saw on the Gardens, which is Hong Kong Attitude playing a little bit slower, in which they should because they have the long range damage. They have the long range poke. Machi do not. It's up to Machi to make the space. It's up to Machi to get in deep and make that dive happen. And so they did. Now Mui, feeling that pressure, going to move on to the fire. And Mango Jai going to be going up in the skies with him as the Mercy.
Yeah, Nuns has got to be like that anti-air Genji now with the Dragon
Got to be
Blade.
the Erster.
Yeah, that's the Kiyomi pick to start it off for Hong Kong Attitude. Need to get a few more. Catching Kant is the way to go. Nuns wants to get aggressive. Probably a little bit too zoned out here. Even if he does trade the 1 back, he's not even going to get that. Will go down. And that's a very late commit on the sound barrier out of Restia. Kind of trying to recover the fight, but I don't know how much it could really get done. They do pick CQB out, but Hong Kong Attitude has still got all the legs in this fight. And now because they had those initial picks, they got the aerial control that they need to let Mui go off. They're still closing out these members here. Machi need to not commit any other ultimates here. Just let the cap go over and try and take it back.
Such an awkward fight for Machi Esports, despite being ahead, despite having the ultimate tools. Now they've given the ultimates to the other side. Hong Kong Attitude going to be feeling pretty happy about that. D-Crown's still on this cap so far. They're just trying to get as much stall out from getting the progress on the cap as they can for the Machi, and actually they're getting a couple ultimates out of Hong Kong Attitude as well.
Yeah, getting the Rocket Barrage and the Primal Rage, and by the way, they're actually still stalling it thanks to No Talk. They are going to lose this one eventually, but to get the extra time and those extra ultimates out, that's actually not too bad.
Wow.
They've pushed it past 80. They've still not got it yet. They won't quite get it as far as 90, I don't think. Well, actually, heck, I could well be wrong based on how this is going. They need to get this last member, and they are going to get it past 90. Machi now do actually need to give it up. Need to just let it go back over, not abandon the win condition. It's 94%. They've only got to win 1 fight.
It's pretty good innings from Machi when you consider how much time they got, how much progress they got, but most importantly, the actual ultimates. What Hong Kong Attitude were gaining was getting those kills and charging up the ults, but it doesn't matter if you're also then having to spend the ults just to stave off those stallers. So Machi Esports come out unequivocally ahead.
Hong Kong Attitude, though, getting some ultimates up, and that res could be all they really need in this fight. Plus, unless Nuns can get the Pharah out of the skies, they don't have that self-destruct out of No Talk to zone those members. They are looking to find the in, looking to get aggressive. They've got the members on the point with the Transcendence out of Kiyomi. Mango Jai's got to be the target priority. Sound barrier on, and Nuns is trying to find his way into it, looking to get on to Mango. That's going to be the catch, but they've lost a couple of members on the ground while he was busy with that one. Now Mui will get a rocket barrage. Nuns does not have any more damage he can pull out with that Dragon Blade already committed. Machi going to get beaten back this time.
It's a difficult position for Machi to play in because it's ill-advised to try and take the pharmacy combo out first when there's 4 members on the ground that are going to be contesting you. But also, if you try and go for the ground fight and you win the ground fight, the res from Mango Jai is going to be extremely powerful in bringing all those dead members back. So Machi, caught between a rock and a hard place, have to make a difficult decision, and it does not work out for them, and it will now be Nuns rockets in the fight, in the sky.
And the teams are now just even in terms of compositions, but very one-sided in terms of ultimates for Hong Kong Attitude. That res could be the swing factor. Randy has that self-destruct as well to zone out those 2 aerial members of Machi. Doesn't get anything for it though. There's still plenty of legs in this fight for Machi, but the Rocket Barrage catches Kiyomi, catches even more res out of Mango Jai as well to keep a few members in the fight. Happy to push it past that 90. Looking to get the route now on Nuns and Can. Those are going to be some late respawns. Can Machi even get a foot back on this?
Those respawns are far too late. Look how aggressive Hong Kong Attitude are getting now. You're even having a
They can't touch it. They can't touch it.
Oh,
D-Crown just barely gets on, but they've lost Kiyomi, they've lost the res. No Talk gonna get a self-destruct just in the nick of time, but they need to get kills off this. Machi, they're desperately trying to stay in this one, but Shaolin has got the closeout now on D-Crown. Moving as well, still keeping control of the skies. Nuns not quite contesting it, but there's the rocket barrage that could come out. Can't gets one. They've got Mango Jai as well. Machi, they're turning it around. No, rocket barrage. He goes down. He gets a couple still, but this is so open, any team could take it. D-Crown is going to barrel back to the point. Kiyomi is back in the fight as well, and will nearly have res, but he goes down now to Shaolin, and neither team coming out the top. It's overtime still. You can't get any further than 99. Machi's not quite ahead. Hong Kong Attitude is still alive in it. It's just too hard to say who can get there. The resources just keep getting traded back and forth. Sound barrier now for Hong Kong Attitude, but they lose Mango Jai. Machi, maybe this is it, getting them set up. Oh no! They stepped off it because of the self-destruct. I don't believe it. What a way for that to get held down. And Hong Kong Attitude, you can see them there shaking their heads. They know how close that came, but they have secured the golden point. They have not lost the 0-3. They have not lost the playoff spot. They still have a shot.
A head shake and a sigh of relief is probably what was on the cards there for Hong Kong Attitude. Nearly not getting that in the end of what was off a fantastic final fight, knocking the rest of Machi away, getting the late picks, even the concussive blast on D-Crown in Primal Rage form, trying to just get to that cap to get the contest going. And as soon as it was Machi, they were actually in it for a very long time. They almost were able to bring it back. Not the case, so because of that, it's going to be 2-1.
And technically, that is a win on Temple of Anubis. And oh man, what a chaotic fight to close that out. I feel like that's the only way to put that. And that's why Hong Kong Attitude be shaking their heads there. Because they don't want chaos. They want control. They want to feel like they are in command and winning because of that. Let's go ahead, though, take a look at some replays.
This is one of those EMP commits. Note that Kiyomi died very early here, but the rest of the members were able to complete that attack that Kiyomi started things off with. So Kant did use the whole hog in the middle of that. D-Crown and Nuns were able to get the rest of the kills. So it was an interesting commit from, I guess, both sides. And the first time in that attack for Hong Kong Attitude, they were able to get a couple counter trades, most importantly on Kiyomi, who previous to that was able to get away despite using EMP.
The one thing that's pretty incredible to say, though, is that was actually the most expensive defense for Machi, and all they committed was 2 ultimates. And the reason they committed the second was because Kiyomi died, they couldn't run the risk, committed that one, still had plenty to use anyway. The fact that most of their fight wins were off EMP alone really says a lot about their defense. Take a look now, and this is on their own defense here, Hong Kong Attitude. And it was, I mean, they're held, but it was always a lot closer, it seemed.
And CQB, you could see him hiding onto the left side there. Actually gets caught in the EMP despite hiding. So he was waiting to actually use the sound barrier here. Still just waiting to use it. As a lot of Machi members are actually going down. And CQB cleans up Kant. And you're still waiting to see if Restia is going to pop a sound barrier. And it's just the rest of Machi falling out, unsuccessfully pushing in.
And the thing was, the only kill they needed to convert off that EMP was Nuns. Just took him out of the picture, took the damage out of the picture. It was enough, right? It was just enough for the hold to come through there for Hong Kong Attitude. And so when I say during the EMP, I mean the enemy team's EMP. Because that was actually the EMP out of Kiyomi. Mango, actually, I believe it was Mui running it, didn't actually have his at the time just yet. So that was the fight that gave them a bit of buffer time to get that one back up. You've got to compare that once again, though, to Machi's own defense. The EMP uptime in fights was 100%. Like every single fight, they were constantly charging it back up. I touched on how the triple tank actually helps with that because you're literally using more health packs to heal up the larger health pools. But even so, the extra damage he was doing was a huge proponent of that. Hong Kong Attitude were able to hold out. They were generally getting EMPs, but there were a couple of fights where they had to rely on something other than EMP, had to rely on a couple of picks on the DPS members of Machi to stay safe. It was just not as comfortable a defense as Machi's, even though the net result was the same.
Yeah, Machi looked a lot more dominant all around, to be honest, and Machi did kind of struggle on their own attack. They didn't have a lot of good moments on their own attack, but overall, when you do compare the teams, it did feel like Machi were on top. Both teams just had a really poor attack, I think, what the biggest takeaway was.
Yeah, actually, exactly that, right? So I mean, and it's kind of interesting because you've got to say that of both teams. You've got to say that of Hong Kong Attitude, who we feel are quite solid on Assault, Temple of Anubis being one of those. They're already in an unusual position, being 0-2 down to the 7th place team, having gone from being the 3rd place team themselves to now risking not making playoffs. Even so, like, it's not like they've changed. It's not like something terribly wrong is happening. Or, I mean, arguably it is, but it's not like they just literally can't do what they were able to do previously on Assault. It's just that they're actually not doing it. And on the flip side of that, it's kind of unexpected out of Machi, because when you're 2-0 up in the series, you don't actually expect to get fully held out like that without getting the 3rd. You actually kind of expect that, at least in this snapshot, you're the better looking team and you can secure that win on Assault.
All right, now we're going to be heading to Dorado, where Hong Kong Attitude had a great run against AHQ yesterday, looking to do a repeat of that. And if they do a repeat of that, suddenly we're into a map 5, and then Machi gotta be sweating just a little bit, because they were 2-0 up, and now suddenly this is a difficult place for them to be.
It kind of is. I mean, this is Hong Kong Attitude territory. You look at last night against AHQ, where they nearly fully capped out, then held up AHQ like before the courtyard. It was pretty intense, pretty incredible. And that's what Machi is staring down the barrel of now. Still doable, but you are into the Hong Kong Attitude territory.
This is a much more comfortable space for Hong Kong Attitude to be as well. This is why it kind of mirrors last night's performance, because Hong Kong Attitude were also 0-2 down. That's where you really got to look at it and say, Hong Kong Attitude have the stamina, they have, I guess, the longevity to go through this full 5-map series. In fact, they're the team that famously went into back-to-back 5-map series in Season 1. So, I mean, for a Hong Kong Attitude side to be 0-2 down, it's not the first time they're here, and they've shown us exactly what they can pull out when they do get here.
The one thing, I suppose, you've got to feel, though, for Hong Kong Attitude is, last night did show that they have the stamina. You're completely right. This turnaround on Assault was not as comfortable looking as last night's turnaround on Assault. But they did even it up, to take it to match point, and then they lost the series. They lost it on the last map pick, and this time it gets to be Machi's map pick for that last map pick as well. They've got the stamina. They can definitely go the distance. But you've also got to be feeling a bit of deja vu here. Certainly, the fear has got to be that you still don't actually close out that last map after fighting all the way back and getting it tied up 2-2. And even then, by the way, it's not actually tied 2-2 yet. Still need to win Dorado.
Exactly, and actually for Hong Kong Attitude, you know, they've been on both sides of that coin, right? They've been to a full 5-map series and won it, and sometimes they haven't won it. They've felt what it feels like to be on either of the receiving end or the side that actually gets to win. But the big thing here to consider, and something that we did touch upon was, when you look at the golden cap, that was a control map type, and Hong Kong Attitude did come out the better of it. So despite going 0-2 down in League Jung, they were able to turn that around.
At least. That's, I don't know, it's your saving grace, I suppose. It's not even a saving grace, it's more just like, you know, at least we got that win on Ilios. At least we were able to actually do it. At least we weren't Machi in that situation, because if they had been, it would have actually been them losing the series. At least they got this opportunity.
Well, it would be at least if they lose Dorado, and that has, we'll have to see exactly how they go on that. It would be a big turnaround if, you know, Ilios and Temple of Anubis was where they begin this reverse sweep, but still takes the first step.
This is interesting here, because this comp from Machi is very similar to what AHQ were running, especially in terms of the pharmacy there. And Hong Kong Attitude reacted to it really well last night. This time around, though, they lost Shai early. He is going to be able to rejoin the fight. Oh, losing Mui as well, though. And I'm just surprised that where it didn't work for AHQ, where Hong Kong Attitude were able to react so well, Machi, they're looking way better on it. AHQ did not break point A. If Machi can at least do that, they're off to a better start.
And they're certainly looking like they're about to break point A. Mui's changing onto the Widowmaker now, wanting a more direct counter to Nuns and No Talk in the air. And it's interesting, Kiyomi's running the Tracer here, so it's not even really the same as what AHQ were doing. This is certainly uncharted territory.
Not quite able to close out the members they were trying to focus down, as Nuns instead gets 2, and that should be a point A cap for themselves now. I don't think Mui's quite going to get that many headshots, and now they're about to lose Randy's mech. Really, the last person affecting the point itself. Even losing Mui for good measure. Kiyomi, nice wraparound to cash that one. That is going to be the point at cap. Like I said, already off to a better start than what AHQ achieved against Hong Kong Attitude last night.
That's the thing, because Machi are playing this in a sort of different manner as well. They're not going too deep here. They're respecting the space from Hong Kong Attitude, but at the same time, they're able to get the pickoffs. The first one into Shailin, and then converting that onto Mui as well. Getting the one into Mui was probably the most important pick, because Mui was playing Soldier. Now onto the Widowmaker. He's expected to counter out Nuns and No Talk here, but so far, it's just not the case.
I mean, you're only counting them out if you actually land a shot. That's really what it comes down to. And he's just struggling to find the silence. Wow, good catch on Kiyomi, but Kiyomi had already thrown at the pulse bomb. So 1 for 1. Machi happy enough to take that because it just means momentum on the cart. That's really what they've got to play for here. And now it's Hong Kong Attitude who have to commit to the ground game. Machi with their own Widowmaker. Mui gets a couple though, and that's pretty key for them. That's actually the res committed, but it doesn't quite save Kant. D-Crown pops the Primal Rage. Hong Kong Attitude just going to pull back for now, trying to keep Randy alive, but those are the kills coming through. Mui starts to trade. The payload's been moving though, and really, that's what's going to matter for Machi here.
And it's still a lot of pressure onto the back of Mui, and Kiyomi responding quite well, despite, considering the fact that he took down Mango Giant, he took the Transcendence out, now taking down Mui as well. Who's the better Widowmaker?
I was about to say, thus far, the Widowmakers have just shot the other members of the team. They haven't quite taken out each other, but that's going to completely change that up. Kiyomi, yeah, who is the better one? Kant as well, looking to get aggressive with this Dragon Blade. Doesn't get much for it though, and now Hong Kong Attitude do have an opportunity as Kant goes down in the retreat, but Kiyomi still getting these shots through, man. D-Crown though pressured out. Kiyomi sees the winds are changing, pulls a little bit back. Machi not going to get too much more on the card. It's just some distance while Hong Kong Attitude reposition, but it is going to be Machi having to back off now.
This is the craziest game so far between these two sides. You've got Randy playing the Soldier, Ting's on a Diva here. Everyone's playing something different. Kiyomi's on a DPS, and look, we know he has played DPS in the past, but we're now seeing No Talk on a Mercy. What is even going on with these roles and with these heroes?
Yeah, we're playing like musical compositions, it almost feels like, or musical roles. And look, look, if it's working, then it's working, right? You've got to kind of take that side of it, but it doesn't feel like the most comfortable thing, indeed, for either teams. I don't know how I feel about this, man. Can't imagine how the teams are feeling.
Well, I know how I feel about it with one team. With one team eventually does come out on top, and so far it's just been very even trades.
It's the 1 for 1. Kiyomi does have to pull back, and that's the res committed onto Kant. Machi want to stay up in this fight, but they lose Nuns, who had the tactical visor. That was going to be their swing tool. Still just trading back and forth, though, and Machi still trying to find these other ends. Ting will be able to commit this self-destruct here, though, and that's something that Machi have to try and avoid. No Talk gets shot in the back while he's trying to avoid the self-destruct, and that's the opportunity for Hong Kong Attitude to try and get aggressive, but they're still losing members of their own. Payload's not been moving this time around, though, so you can't really say this is working out the same way it was before for Machi, even as the trades are coming through. But now Nun's re-entering. He wants that tactical visor kills. He's got a couple. Payload underway, needs to find a way to close out on Mui. Ooh.
Yeah, Mui closes out on Nuns instead, but well, it's showing us exactly who's doing what.
They've got to commit, though, Hong Kong Attitude. They've got to try and stop up this cap, and honestly, the sound barrier gives them the legs to do that. But Kiyomi is still putting eyes on this fight, still putting pressure down and throwing in damage. Shailin, they're just keeping Machi barely scattered enough to withhold for now, but man, losing Randy, it's like they're constantly fighting from the back foot.
This is really strange. One team has a Diva, the other one doesn't. Also, both teams are running a Widowmaker here. Out comes the Transcendence from Mango Giant. Mui lands a shot into Kant, and I don't even know what's going on.
And now, this is so intense. Now No Talk as well is going to be onto the Zenyatta. Machi a little bit back-footed in this fight, but they do get Mango and CQB and Randy now. This could be the saving grace because the Ting is low. Mui can't really affect the card itself. Does not get the self-destruct up in time. And now Shailin dead. Mui knows he can't touch it. That is going to be the cap at last coming through for Machi.
Now Randy close to the tactical visor. He can't exactly change off his hero just yet. A Ting does take the Winston back, so now Randy, after using this tactical visor, can choose to go back to the Diva. Machi as well are now going to be committed onto this composition because No Talk has taken the Zenyatta from Kiyomi. So whatever Kiyomi's doing, he's going to be sticking onto this.
I mean, look, as much as it's weird who is playing what right now, functionally, this is essentially the same team comp for both teams. It's just the difference being Genji over Soldier for Machi, and so far it's working for them. Randy, though, looking to get aggressive, but getting pressured off that high ground means you can't get too much. Deflect was there, had to stall for a moment, but they get Kiyomi. That means Hong Kong Attitude have an opportunity to get stable, but they need to make something of that opportunity because the Transcendence gives Machi the window. Trade's coming back in though, and Machi, they've got the further away respawn, so unless they get a Ting and Randy now here, without losing too many members, it's not quite going to happen. Lose too many. D-Crown ends up going down on the back end of that one as well, and that is going to be the pullback and another shot at stabilization for Hong Kong Attitude.
Stabilization in terms of composition as well, because No Talk and Kiyomi do a little bit of a swap there, and Kent goes back onto his Roadhog. Hong Kong Attitude are going to be sticking onto what they know and so far what they've run. They're committed to continuing this composition. Moi, as long as he can continue to find the angles and find the kills, it should work. But eventually, you might just favor Machi Esports for running something a little bit more stable. However, they do not have the time.
Yeah, and that's really the big factor. You can't charge up ultimates, take some out of Hong Kong Attitude. You just got to find a way to get you in. You've got to get some picks. They don't really have the defensive ultimates here, and that could be the saving grace for Hong Kong Attitude. On the other side of that, good catch on Kiyomi and Nuns too. Randy, I don't know what happened there, but I guess a Helix rocket of his own, but a Ting closing out on rest here. That's going to be Machi having to take the retreat here. D-Crown, if he gets routed, actually No Talk is going to be the one who gets routed. Will at least go over the edge so he can reset the mech, but takes a lot more time off the clock.
This is kind of surprising because you're not seeing the win condition from the Roadhog here. You would favor the Tracer Spade specifically against someone like Mui on the Widowmaker, specifically to get into the backline against Randy, CQP, and Mango Jai. The Hog doesn't counter any tanks here, aside from a Ting. That's just one play, and if that's the only play you can counter, what is your actual win condition against triple DPS and 2 supports in backline?
This is, it's a tight spot, really, for both teams, but Hong Kong Attitude, with those extra ults, that could be all they need. D-Crown pop in the Primal Rage quite early there. Transcendence same from Mango Jai, and the sound barrier out. Nuns needs to get a lot done, goes down to the Tactical Visor. That's what Machi need. They get D-Crown too. Or sorry, rather what Hong Kong Attitude need. It's exactly what Machi don't need. They do get a good bit of distance on the payload before this all happened, at least, but that is going to be the final fight, being held down by Hong Kong Attitude, who just had more resources than Machi could fight their way through. That's where the cart will have its final distance a little bit forward of that point you saw on your screens. And now it is once again on Hong Kong Attitude to get the cart that far.
Both teams were really testing each other there. Who is going to play the weirder composition and who's going to feel more comfortable while doing it? And it was Hong Kong Attitude, because eventually Machi says we're going to go back to something we know a little bit more. We know a little bit better. That was going on to Roadhog, Genji, and the rest of the works. The Roadhog pick you still have to question somewhat, just because it wasn't effective. It showed why it wasn't effective, and the triple DPS just kind of ran circles around him. But Mui on the Widowmaker, despite Kiyomi having some good shots, having good showing, it was Mui who got the better shots in the end, who had the more consistent damage output and the more consistent kills.
In a lot of ways, it did kind of feel like that defense, and even at sometimes the offense, were just kind of being held together by duct tape and glue, you know? Like, it did not look super clean and tidy. It was just kind of barely intact, but I mean, that ended up being enough for Hong Kong Attitude. So look, if it's stupid and it works, then it ain't stupid, right?
Or it's just stupid and it works. Or it actually is stupid, but it works.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It is a little bit weird. I think for Hong Kong Attitude, it's a case of it's working, so why change? And for Machi, it was the opposite, in which case it's, this is not working, we need to change. So, you know, Machi, even right at the end there, just playing compositional catch-up with 1 minute remaining, kind of mentioned this already while it was happening, but there's no way they can get the actual ultimates up for it to be beneficial, and still just unable to really do anything about Mui. So Hong Kong Attitude, I mean, this is now starting to feel like a little bit more than a second win. This is them taking control of the game, and this is looking like the third place Hong Kong Attitude that we saw earlier on in the season.
At least to some extent it is. I mean, you don't want it to have only shown up, I suppose, at the bottom part of the series, but better that than not showing up at all. So, let's see how this one works out the gate. I think maybe actually he's going to commit to this, at least for now. It worked for them on the defense, so why not?
There's a lot less squishy targets, though, so you're not going to get those one shots. So you're going to have to be a little bit more consistent on the headshots, and even then, just a much bigger health pool, all things considered, to break into.
It just kind of bothers me that, like, on the faces at the top, Roadhog faces the other way to everyone else.
He's
like
looking at his team.
Diva's like front on, but Roadhog's just the complete opposite. I don't know, that makes me uncomfortable. Hong Kong Attitude, though, sending Shaolin in to get the wraparound. All they need to get is a good opening pick here. Machi need to respect that that's coming. Good catch on Nuns. It's the opening that Hong Kong Attitude are after. Just looking to get the pressure on. Close out on Kant. Nice orb with Discord to help that one out. Mango, he even gets the kill credit for Restia. That is going to be Hong Kong Attitude well underway now, even sending Mui far forward to take ownership of that high ground ahead of the cap, and that should be the cap coming through. Actually does go down to Nuns. They don't quite get that control there, but should still be the cap anyway.
The thing is, though, Mui drew Nuns so far away from the cap itself. Now Machi Esports, and do they even have enough members to get there in time? It does seem like the contest has started, and here comes a flank from Shaolin.
Good pulse bomb stick onto Nuns, and he's alive during the recall, so he can't take the damage from his own ultimate. Looking to get the wraparound now onto Kiyomi. Sound barrier committed from Machi, but Hong Kong Attitude can just match with their own one as they continue to get aggressive. Catch on No Talk, close out on Kiyomi. Very late deaths from Machi. Now the rest of their members are just trying to pull back. They're going to lose Restia very slowly. Now it should be Hong Kong Attitude once again able to go ahead a little bit and actually take possession of this high ground that Machi would want.
Silver lining here for Machi is that so far they've managed to hold onto A longer than Hong Kong Attitude did, so the B now has to be where it really counts. Can Machi stabilize themselves here? Can they really start to dominate Milwee and pressure him out of this fight?
Good catch on Nuns. So far the answer is no. Even though Mui is extremely low, he's going to be able to pull back. They get that extra distance thanks to having control of that high ground. And they're still just pushing Machi back. Machi haven't quite got into position yet.
We'll have to see now because time still ticks down. The count does still continue to move. And actually for Hong Kong Attitude, where do they find their next pick in Machi? How are they going to assault Mui? Because Mui is rather safe currently.
As the self-destruct to come out from No Talk. Just to make them a bit of space to play with at least. The Transcendence from Mango hasn't converted too much, but it's Hong Kong Attitude still getting the kills now, even as the Transcendence ends. Shaolin making it happen. Machi getting beaten back again. Never quite took possession of any of that territory in the space, and now they get one last shot before B, but that is not what you call making it count.
Certainly not, because this is now a much faster B from Hong Kong Attitude than it was for Machi. So what window of opportunity that Machi bought on A for having a slightly better defense, it's not showing now on B, and it's certainly not going to allow them to get any significant advantage against Hong Kong Attitude, who still have Milwee uncontested.
And also got Shaolin largely uncontested. He's constantly getting this wraparound to get the catch on Mango Jai. Mui knows where everyone is, but, well, he certainly knows where D-Crown is by now. Able to pull back, but the rest of Hong Kong Attitude quite low. Good catch on Cad. Hong Kong Attitude just barely keeping these members topped off. Self-destruct on the payload. Ooh, barely getting back on it is Kiyomi with that Transcendence, and the Primal Rage comes out. But they need to make some space for Nuns to get back in this fight. Do something with the Dragon Blade. The sound barrier makes it hard, though, and he gets pressured out. Hong Kong Attitude still getting the kills through Machi, despite the resources they've felt on the back foot, and indeed have been for the entirety of this street space defense, and that should be off the back of these last few kills and the fight win, the cap now for Hong Kong Attitude.
This is where you can tell that Machi are really struggling, because they're committing a lot of resources to try and get Milwee, and none of it's been successful. D-Crown jumps in, he even uses the Primal Rage. Milwee's completely ignoring him. He's just playing around with the Winston. He's just going for shots on the other team. Kills I believe it was Kant who was playing the Tracer back then with a shot while being chased down. Nuns tries to dive onto Milwee with the Dragon Blade. That's not even going to be enough.
And now Machi back to what unfortunately didn't work for them on the point A as well. So we'll have to see if it's able to work for them now. Difference being they are popping out the Tracer instead of the Genji here. They're just kind of, they're wanting Nuns' Tracer, I suppose, over the Genji. Apologies for the technical issues there. Back underway, should be in a moment here. Hong Kong Attitude don't really want to slow down.
Speaking of slow down, again, apologies for that technical delay, but what we can take out of this moment here is it is interesting to see Camp back onto the Roadhog, because we did note some of the issues that he had originally on that attack, so
Pulse
can he
bomb.
make it work?
I think the Pulse Bomb got eaten up by No Talk there. Still good pressure coming out, though. Oh, man.
So close. Look at where the cart is, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
just about there.
Meters away.
Just kind of beaten back the tide for now, but they need to not lose these members. D-Crown goes down. Kant needs to stay alive as well. Goes down to the self-destruct. That's the big catch. Sound barrier. That's from Restia.
That's all we got to work with there. So Sound Barrier was committed from Restia, although a lot of members went down.
Oh no! It rescues a few members. Well, we're straight back into the middle of the action, folks, and Mui's just still getting all these headshots. D-Crown and Can, they need to find a way to stall, but Shailin is trying to stay on top of them as they look to get the respawn in. My goodness.
D-Crown used the Primal Rage. We do know that much.
We get the frame-by-frame breakdown.
So you are going to have the power slide attack here from...
They're trying to get in, and they just can't do it. These kills are still all coming up. Hong Kong attitude. The whole hog committed to no effect. That is going to be capped through, and look, maybe it is, you know, at the bottom of it all, Hong Kong attitude finding a way back in. They bring it back 2 for 2, and you've got to be pleased enough with that. But man, you still can't feel good about how the series started, right? And you've still got to have that fear in the back of your mind that it's just going to go the same way as the series yesterday against AHQ, where you did tie it back up, but you couldn't close it out.
And the thing is, this was always going to be the part of the series which is very difficult for Machi. When you get to this tail end, Assault and then a Escort and going to the last hybrid, Hong Kong attitude come into their own. This is what happened against AHQ yesterday, and it's happening again now, and that's why the scoreline is going to be 2-2.
Oh man, you know what though? Even if they do lose the series as a whole, that 2 for 2 could just be what saves them, because if I'm not mistaken, that would leave them on a +2 map difference. And if Blank don't pick up any map wins of their own, that would have them, if I'm not mistaken, because it's actually currently +2 for AHQ with Dorado picked up there. They're on 28 map wins. That should just scrape them in to 4th place. That is, however, if it's Blank on the losing side. Because if it's AHQ, it's a bit of a different story. And I think a 3-1 in favor of Blank actually still would see Hong Kong attitude not making it in, even with a 3-2 win.
And it's still not even determined yet exactly how Hong Kong attitude have their chips fall, because it's 2-2, meaning there's one more map to go. Hong Kong attitude can still get that extra map win. Machi could still get that extra map win and deny Hong Kong attitude from that more important match win, which would really secure Hong Kong attitude within that top 3. But before we move on, let's take a look at the replays. Of course, we're up to Dorado, the B cap here. And this is going to be in the middle of Hong Kong attitude's attack. And note that, you know, Mui and Shailin going off here, no surprises.
And the thing is, both teams actually had a decent street space. But it was about here that Machi started getting slowed up on their attack, just because, honestly, Mui picking up the Widowmaker on the defense started to do a bit of work, and it wasn't until Kiyomi was able to get his own Widowmaker out that they started to do some work of their own. And even then, it was just really, really closely fought, right? They were constantly trading a couple of picks, a couple of headshots, getting a few meters, then having to pull back a little. Respawns would flood in, they'd get a couple more shots. However, on Hong Kong attitude's attack, they were largely unstopped. You can see how deep on the backline these members of Machi are going to displace Mui and deal with him. They do at least pick Mango Jai, but the rest of the members on the fight are all blue. It's all Hong Kong attitude, and the self-destruct from Randy is so well placed. This is where Machi are earnestly on the back foot. They start trying to pull back and regroup. They had the Transcendence to do it, but really Hong Kong attitude had a positional advantage, and they still had more resources to use, and it's no surprise that they were able to convert these last few kills to eventually get the point cap.
I actually saw in the middle that D-Crown was chasing Mui a lot with the Primal Rage, so the amount of resources that actually Machi are throwing onto Mui, and for it to not work, Mui in the middle of all of that still picks up kills. He got a kill onto Can early on, gets a headshot onto Rissi here. Nuns pulled out the blade early to try and chase him down, but nothing that Machi were throwing at the guy was sticking.
Unfortunately so, and that's the thing, he was always able to come back into it and, you know, at least get one kill, right? And the thing is, the thing you got to remember, even if you're actually not getting the kill on the Widowmaker in this situation, like when these teams are playing, a body shot is something, right? Because you've got those members, you've got the Winston and Tracer that'll be diving to follow up on members that have taken a Widowmaker body shot, because they're close enough to dead that it's quite safe to do that dive. So like every single landed shot is massive pressure, assuming you're not taking too much damage in your own right, and assuming your Widowmaker keeps surviving, which Mui was.
And that's the thing, because he didn't actually die. Despite all of the people chasing him, he never died. And so it would be worth the resources
immortal Mui.
if you can actually kill him. If D-Crown killed him, if Nuns had killed him, because it wasn't the case though. He was able to not only run away from the chasing people, but he was also able to get kills and damage done in the middle of all of it. But now, with 2-2 being the current record here in the series, only one map separates the victor from the loser. We're gonna have to find out exactly what that map is and who will come out on top, and that happens after this break. Welcome back again to OPC Season 2 as we're now heading into the final map of the first match of the day, and it is Hong Kong Attitude versus Machi. So far tied up 2-2, with Hong Kong Attitude now threatening the reverse sweep.
And without any further ado, the map pick from Machi, who do get that final map because it is their home site. They're taking it to Numbani. And you gotta be scared here if you're Hong Kong Attitude. This is where you did lose to AHQ. This is where you actually ended up 0-2 down in your series yesterday against AHQ, which they then actually went on to lose. Oh, look, this is still doable here for Hong Kong Attitude. Certainly they've started biting back, and I guess salvageable is the word I would use. You would be okay, I guess, with a 3-2 win. Still means you're not super secure in making it into playoffs necessarily, but a 2-3 loss, I think that may just rule them out.
I think here a reminder to sort of remember is it's interesting you bring up that matchup between Hong Kong Attitude and AHQ on Numbani, and Machi picking up this map wants to channel some of that success that AHQ had against Hong Kong Attitude, because this is now still their opportunity to get a victory. They've been on match point for some time now, and for the first time in the series, though, Hong Kong Attitude bring it to match point themselves, so could still go either way.
Still haven't had a single reverse sweep this tournament, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. So
still might not.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We still might not. But if they would, this would be like a first and a last. I mean, look, there's still more matches today, sure, but it's like be the last opportunity for Hong Kong Attitude to do it, certainly. And, you know, first reverse sweep in what is both of these teams' last match of the regular season. On the whole, I mean, it's just intense, right?
I think Hong Kong Attitude have actually had the most full 5-map series than any other team. By the way, AHQ and Hong Kong Attitude twice in the season have gone to a 5th map.
And we actually said, just between ourselves yesterday, we said technically today could go to 20 games. And actually it's already gone to 6 maps if you include.
Technically it could go further than 20 maps.
That's right? The thing. Technically you actually can. You can go further than 20 maps. Can't go further than 20 games. But certainly already got 5 on the board, so yeah, I don't know, maybe that's the way it's going to go.
So the thing is, Hong Kong Attitude have been to 5 maps against AHQ twice, once against Flash Wolves and once against Mega, and now against Machi as well. I mean, this team just really goes the distance all the time.
And look, I suppose if they do make playoffs, that helps you out there when you're in best of 7s, where stamina really matters. Like, to win.
And they haven't won all of those, by the way.
Well, exactly. But, I mean, at least there is the stamina, right? At least you don't just end up completely crumbling the moment you get past that kind of 3rd, 4th map position. They've had some that have been wins as well. So, at any rate, on the attack first, need to see if they can pull out the final win, get their reverse sweep, make it all happen, keep the playoff stream alive.
Finally, we're now seeing Nun's Guns pulling out the Soldier against Mui, also onto the Soldier, so they want to take this 1v1 very personally, and the only difference here in compositions is going to be Mango Jai on a Sombra.
This is nothing too spicy out of either of these teams, except for maybe Mango Jai on the Sombra, but even then we know how good he is. She's going to be Charlotte the first casualty. Both teams just kind of jostling around. It's the trade backs, though. I mean, Machi, they're not really in a super secure position in their own right, and Hong Kong Attitude, despite losing Shaolin, kind of are. Nuns is going to have to pull off this high ground and wrap around. That gives Mui some free time, allows Hong Kong Attitude to get onto the point as well. Mui has to drop off it just to contest him, these members, as he is getting low, but the contest only just coming in from Machi, and the angle is still here, at least for Mui. They get Cant and no Torque Smack. That should be enough to put them up in the fight, which is really only Machi's last contest for point A. That should result in a point A cap. Now, Tactical Visor,
a little bit greedy.
Yeah, a little greedy, but they are going to get the route anyway, so I suppose it's kind of worth it. Restia was able to get the dive, and they did get the kill on Kiyomi, but cap in space, he'll take it.
Actually, Mui got a decent rocket, Helix rocket onto Cant a little bit early on. He threaded the needle and threw it under the, or rather fired it under the cart itself to hit Cant. So the best part for Hong Kong Attitude, or rather the best part for Machi, is you got the EMP out of Mango Jai and you got the Tactical Visor out of Mui. The good news for Hong Kong Attitude is you got the cap win, and actually the Tactical Visor got a decent number of kills. So that was pretty worthwhile, I guess, for both sides. There's sort of silver linings there, and give pros and cons for both the teams.
They've got the tools for this. That's the Tactical Visor, though, out of Nuns. They're just looking to, at least buy time, if nothing else. Ideally, you get the fight win, but that's conversion. Getting the 2. Trading 2, though, and Shaolin is able to go off on these backliners. Now Machi kind of playing damage control here. They have to kind of commit to get more kills to make this at least worthwhile in terms of ult charge, but ultimately Hong Kong Attitude's respawn is closer. They will be able to get the payload underway, and this is Shaolin playing like we know.
And Machi Esports pretty aggressive there. They did have the nano boost commit, but just not enough mileage out of that one. Hong Kong Attitude playing the disengage game, pulling a little bit further back, giving Mui that space, and then allowing him to shine. Now Mui's onto the flank as well. As long as he can get be kept safe here, Ting's going to do a little bit of target spotting for himself. Nice Complicated, who, by the way, had no idea where he got killed from.
Yeah. Didn't see that at all. Now No Talk's in a similar position. He's like, which way do I face? Which way do I face? D-Crown going to go charging in with the sound barrier on after already losing No Talk's mech and being 1 DPS down. They're constantly seeming to fight from the back foot here, Machi, and it's showing. Hong Kong Attitude still getting the kills through. Ting is able to commit the Primal Rage to stay alive. Machi can commit some ultimates of their own, but losing Nuns means there's not many people to actually convert off these tank ultimates that they're throwing into the mix, especially when those tank ultimates themselves aren't getting kills. Does beat back a Ting and Randy, but now they can recommit with their own EMP out. Machi, once again, now having actually committed the ultimates too, are going to end up losing the fight. Mui getting a good few with the tactical visor, slept at the end, and I think that's a well-deserved rest.
Yeah, Hong Kong Attitude, despite the sleep at the end, which is the only plus that you can really give to Machi in that entire fight, it was very one-sided. Hong Kong Attitude got everything done. Mango Jai with that additional kill, now halfway towards his next EMP. Mui, a triple kill on his own tactical visor, and you're still just waiting to see what Machi can pull here. You're still waiting to see what value they can get out of their own ultimates, because so far, it's not been enough.
Oh, Mango, though, going down to Kiyomi. That's something that Machi do desperately need, trying to get the pressure on Shylin as well. Ting low. Can't quite get the follow-up. You can tell D-Crown and Kenta itching for it, but smart to hold off.
It feels like the first real slowdown against Hong Kong Attitude this entire attack. Machi have just been on the retreat the entire time, have just been on the fallback, have been trying to find a position where they can actually stabilize, and this might just be it. And this is also the best place for a defender to stabilize, but now 3 minutes 42 that they have to hold for.
The EMP is always being a factor. Double pulse bomb, though, does mean EMP can't exactly come out this fight, and good discipline, I suppose, from Hong Kong Attitude to not commit anything more. No route either, but that's the kind of hold that Machi need. Low economy.
Low economy, and it starts to look like Temple of Anubis all over again. Machi, this gives them a lot of time to build up necessary ultimates, much needed ultimates, like the sound barrier from Recia. That's going to be an important one to counter out the EMP from Mango Giant, but Recia has to keep himself safe, has to make sure he's out of line of sight of the EMP to not get caught.
As does Nuns with that Dragon Blade available. That's really going to be the key source of damage for this one.
Oh, what a sleep!
EMP out, wow! And they look to get the commit here. Mango trying to get the extra hack onto Nuns, who's just trying to stay alive until he can Dragon Blade. Does have the nano boost on him. The kills are coming up. Hong Kong Attitude. This is going to be a turnaround now for Nuns. Gets Mui, turns around CQB2, looking for a few more. Tries to get Randy. Will at least get the self-destruct out of him. They want to try and kill him before he can remech, but he catches Nuns in the explosion. Should still be Hong Kong Attitude back and off for a moment before they regroup. The respawns here for Machi become a factor. They need to not lose any members. Shylin is going to try and make that not be a possibility for them. D-Crown does stay alive, but No Talk loses the mech, so he will not stay alive. They're not actually getting any kills for No Talk being on the mech there. Can his own pulse bomb, not quite getting much done, but the dive onto Mui does at least pay off. They're still just trading back and forth. The payload isn't moving though, and that respawn advantage for Machi will start to pay off eventually if they can just keep getting a few more kills through, trying to buff it around these members, dive in to close out on Mango, and may just get it too. Indeed they do. Maybe this is the core of a stabilize. Probably need to commit the self-destruct just to make it happen, but they can at least commit the self-destruct, as Randy did also pick D-Crown.
And this is going to be a big fight for Machi, despite the fact that Hong Kong Attitude is still sustaining themselves. Now it's going to be a tactical visor, but directly into a matrix. No team is really coming out ahead, but the team that does get advantage is still going to be Machi, because they're holding very tight to their own spawn. They can respawn and reinforce so quickly. Eventually, Hong Kong Attitude, they're going to run out of gas.
They've committed an EMP as well, so they are just throwing more gas at it, right? But Machi are losing a couple of members. This isn't ideal to push the payload off though, but Nuns low and D-Crown back. Hong Kong Attitude getting more distance. And where even are Machi, right? Like, enough of these members are up. They don't need to just be stalling and throwing bodies at the payload, but they're not doing anything else, right? They're not really fighting this one out efficiently. Now trying to get in as some respawners come out. They'll have to wait out for the self-destruct now. Wait out the sound barrier. They lose Cat in the mix, and that's a key ultimate that they needed. This has got to be a big Dragon Blade, but he's only got one. Huge. He does get a second. Needs more, but he doesn't. Randy's got the closeout, but they do lose a Ting. Machi may just be able to hold on to it, especially if they can remech No Talk, and they've got these stall tools about to come out the gate as well. Kiyomi staying alive, gets Shylin too with that same Bionade that saves his life. That's Hong Kong Attitude having to pull back one last time.
That was such an epic defense. It went for a very long time there for both teams. A lot of ultimates being committed, but Kiyomi consistently holding out his own. You got to say, he's one of the few members, him and Nuns, who's getting consistent kills with the Dragon Blade. It all started. Kiyomi landed this epic sleep dart on Shailin, who tried to get this flank, and Kiyomi read it so well, landing sleep darts on Demui on the high ground as well. He just hasn't really been missing. Even when you finally think you got a 2v1 on him, he lands a Bionade which kills Shailin and then really forces Mango Jai back.
Hong Kong Attitude need to cap to make this really easily doable for them. And it'll all come down to their defense. Machi need to hold. Oh dear, they had the ultimates, but losing Can here. Mui's going to be able to get one in. D-Crown though looking to get aggressive. Stop that before it starts. They get Mango. They lose No Talk. They need to get more out of these ultimates, trying to dive onto Mui, who has got that tactical visor. But D-Crown's getting buffeted by a Ting, has to commit its own ultimate. And that means he doesn't get to use it to stall the card itself. The sound barrier already committed. Hong Kong Attitude though, losing Can. Self-destruct gets Kiyomi, and they're still trading. The card's still moving, just getting contested now. But Hong Kong Attitude still getting some kills through. A Ting sat in the middle of the fight, but has to reload and is taking damage in that window. And that's the self-destruct from No Talk. If it can just get anything, it can't. But a Ting gets D-Crown. Oh my goodness, Hong Kong Attitude, how are they staying in this? How are Machi not getting more kills off all of these respawners? Now throwing in a Mei so that they can stall, but the members are dead, as is the Mei, as is the Tracer, and that's going to be the last little push to get it over the line for Hong Kong Attitude. And now Machi have to bet on Time Bank or bust.
Machi though, what an epic hold. I mean, they bet everything onto C, and an A and B was a bit of a disaster for them. Hong Kong Attitude were fully in control, and now what the issue was for Hong Kong Attitude going into C against AHQ kind of repeats itself. Not in the same manner, not getting spawn camped by AHQ, but they still got held up for such a long time on the C. All the extra buffer that they bought on A and B doesn't count for anything. Capping into overtime, even if you do cap, that's not where you want to be. And actually for Machi, this is a great position to be in.
Would have been just that little bit better to have at least stopped up the cap. That means all you have to do is cap to secure the win. But look, Time Bank is at least something. They've still got to do it though. In this for Hong Kong Attitude, we know how doable it is for them to stop up that offense at any point. Indeed, a first hold isn't even out of the picture. Actually, Machi kind of need to get a quick cap and a fast Streets phase 2 if they really want to go into Time Bank looking healthy.
And they're going to need to... They really need to cap out before the overtime, right? That's got to be the real win condition here for Machi. Just capping is not going to be enough. Not capping is obviously a loss, but if they get a cap in overtime as well, then suddenly you're in a situation when another draw is really possible. And this could just go to 7 maps. I don't want to curse. I don't want to curse us or anything.
Please don't suggest that. The thing is, though,
then if the seventh map draws, we can play Hearthstone.
at last. And you know what? We'll get a dead man's hand mirror matchup. Yep. But look, okay.
Turns.
In all seriousness, I mean, look, it's worth just exploring that territory while we've got a brief moment before the gates open here. If we do go to another golden point, you've got to question who comes out the better of it, right? Because it's now actually Hong Kong Attitude with the more consistent record of winning golden point despite losing control at the beginning of the matchup. And Hong Kong Attitude are looking better than they were when they lost that control as well. So you've got to say that that's still Machi on the back foot in a sense.
And the newest customer of Nun's Guns is Kiyomi. Picks himself up the soldier instead. It's going to be Machi pushing on through with a triple DPS. Hong Kong Attitude defending with a more standard Tracer soldier composition. And this attack now is very reliant on setting up Kiyomi onto this high ground at the back. The tank's going to be opening things up, just making sure there's no one there. And now they have to jump off the Mui.
Oh, good catch on Kant. That's not how you want to start that off. He just kind of ran himself into a Ting, and it's going to actually waste a lot of time. This is a triple DPS, but it's not the super volatile kind. They do actually need to take a bit of time to get Kiyomi set up.
Mui on the other hand is well set up, getting a lot of damage in there already as well. 30% to 18% is the difference in ultimate charge between the two soldiers here. At least so for Machi Esports, they didn't lose too much. They only just lost the 1 member, so now they're going to go for a more aggressive approach onto the immediate back line of Hong Kong Attitude.
Now looking to get into the thick of it here, want to round out these members, but good Bionade onto these members of Machi here. Nuns able to get topped off, but that's not too comfortable. They lose Can in the mix though, and they're still not converting any kills, only just getting Mango Jai. But they're all just kind of running into a lot of damage in this corridor, getting all these members super, super low. And it means they don't get to maximize what Kiyomi could potentially do if he was on the high ground. And by the way, this isn't a fight on the point either. This doesn't actually gain them anything, doesn't gain them any progress. Unless they're getting huge numbers of kills, those sorts of fights are never going to be worth it for Machi. And now look, they're just completely stuck on the wrong side of this point with no retreat path and no way to get ahead in the fight itself.
The real difficult thing for Machi here is the fact that Hong Kong Attitude split the Machi attackers up, and still, Machi's just not finding the opening, but here comes a potential attack.
Yeah, getting CQB with the sound barrier on, Nuns gets another one, gets two for his trouble. That's the kind of conversion they need. Does run right into a Ting's Winston, who's going to instantly flip it back around. Hong Kong Attitude have close of respawns, don't forget that. That has to be respected, because they've also got ultimate sound barrier to preserve Randy in this fight. Mui's going to be able to re-enter it with a tactical visor, so unless Machi start closing out this fight about now, there is still the potential for Hong Kong Attitude to get back in it. Kiyomi, though, in equal measure to Mui, is trying to leg it to the point to affect the fight, but it's just not happening. Mui finally gets there and starts to turn it back around, committing the self-destruct for no talk, ended up getting nothing for them. And Machi, they didn't even get a third off that. That's just not good enough.
Now forcing the full retreat as well off the back of a lot of commits from the Machi side, a lot of commits from the Hong Kong Attitude side as well. And Machi, the only respite that they can get, the only silver lining that they can really hold on to is the fact that Kiyomi still maintains this tactical visor. That's an advantage they can use. If they can focus down Randy's mech, prevent the Matrix from stopping Kiyomi, that is an opening that Machi can exploit, but that's all they've got.
All right, well, this is now looking doable for Hong Kong Attitude. They've just got to hold out a couple more times. Ultimates are now there, though, for Machi. They've got to play this more smart. They can't keep piling in. They have to utilize Kiyomi's positioning, have to keep Nuns alive as well, but they can't protect Nuns. They can't protect Kiyomi either. The self-destruct out from Randy catches can, and all they've got with that tactical visor is one. Is just not enough, because now the tanks can pile on, and Kiyomi feels like a fool for committing it, has to fully leg it as the sound barrier came out for the members that were still on the point. And Machi, they're starting to fall short of the mark. They're starting to look sloppy, committing these ultimates and getting nowhere near enough out of them, always throwing more into already lost fights. And now with only 30 seconds left, they only have a third of A.
The bigger problem for Machi is that they're not opening up space for Kiyomi to get any work done. He's having to use a tactical visor to try and buy more kills, to try and buy more time. And Machi, they're not actually making it work for the rest of the team. They can't get and dislodge Hong Kong Attitude. Mui, he's just been uncontested for the most part. Even when he is contested, he's not going down, and with no time left, no ultimates used, no ultimates left rather for Machi Esports, it's looking really difficult.
Looking to get aggressive one last time, Machi. They go into a lot of Hong Kong Attitude ultimates. That is the tactical visor and sound barrier, and they convert off what they've got, picking those two. Machi already on the back foot. No Talk's got to get something like a 5k here. Kant doesn't even get a chance to use the pulse bomb, and that self-destruct gets nothing. Now No Talk finds himself alone on the point with no hope of reinforcement, no hope of reprieve, and no hope of getting that payload underway, of keeping Numbani alive, and maybe getting that upset. It is not going to happen. And for Hong Kong Attitude, that was not comfortable at any juncture, but they do pull out that win where a loss would have been disaster and heartbreak. Maybe, just maybe, they will still make playoffs.
And now, for the first time in OPC Season 2, you do have a successful reverse sweep. They had a very difficult space to play in for Hong Kong Attitude, but they did get it at the end of the day. And actually, the real heartbreak is actually for Machi, where they nearly got a 3-0. Temple of Anubis, the first half looked so good for them, but the second half, they fell apart. They couldn't bring it back into the Golden Cap as well. And since the Golden Cap, since that ill-fated Ilios map, they just went downhill. And Hong Kong Attitude came back into form, looked a lot more like the third place Hong Kong Attitude that we're much more consistent in seeing. And now Hong Kong Attitude potentially buying themselves back into playoffs.
That's a pretty interesting situation for them to be in, right? So now their record sits 8 wins, 6 losses, +4 map difference with 29 map wins, 25 map losses. That means if AHQ win, if I'm not mistaken, no matter what, Hong Kong Attitude are in. If AHQ lose, but it's a 3-2, I think there is still a chance that Hong Kong Attitude wouldn't make it. That would be pretty incredible. That's how close this is going to come down to, because the way it works, it goes, first of all, the match record itself, which in that instance, I believe, actually, no, if AHQ lose, then actually AHQ would be behind in the overall match record. They would be 7-7 to Hong Kong Attitude's 8-6. But basically, because it may be relevant, you go match record, then head-to-head, then map difference and record. That's where that stat becomes a factor. And that's the thing. When you're in these situations where you've got like Hong Kong Attitude AHQ who are tied in the head-to-head, that means something a lot here. Whereas blank and Hong Kong Attitude, where Hong Kong Attitude have won both the times these teams have met, very different head-to-head situation. What happens in the AHQ blank matchup could still mean so much for this team.
It just feels like a lot of it is still up in the air, and a lot of it does get decided in the next match coming up, but we're not quite there just yet. Still a couple comments to be made about the Machi versus Hong Kong Attitude series, and I guess the one I want to say about Machi first is the fact that despite not winning today, being 2-0 up after the second match is the best record they've ever had against Hong Kong Attitude, and this has probably been one of the best matches they've had in Season 2. They've only beaten Mega and Limited Supreme twice. Now, the first time they beat Mega was in the opening match of OPC Season 2, but this has to be their most impressive result in the season despite that.
The only unfortunate thing you've got to say for Hong Kong Attitude here as well, as much as they pull off the reverse sweep, by the way, player of the game going to go over to Mui on the Widowmaker, and pretty well deserved, but there's something kind of afoot here with Hong Kong Attitude. They dropped to AHQ yesterday for the first time in months, right? They nearly lost to Machi now. They've just barely done it, right? They may still scrape through into playoffs, but you've got to start to consider maybe they'll be the AHQ of Season 2 in that you do technically make it into playoffs, but you're the weakest team and you're the first to go home. You don't want that to happen when you've worked so hard to get here, right? You finished 4th place last time around. You don't want to finish 4th place this time around and not get any further than that, because then the question becomes, well, I mean, did they even deserve it at all? The answer will have been yes, because they will have worked hard and they have earned that spot. But you want to make something of that spot. You don't want it to end with you getting the spot and getting nothing done with it. You don't want to be the weakest team coming into playoffs. And when their match record so far against a lot of these other teams in that top 3 that would be joining them in playoffs, whether it's blank or AHQ that are in there with them, you've got to wonder whether Hong Kong Attitude, no matter how you slice it, will be the weakest of these teams just because of the records against teams like AHQ and against teams like Guardian.
Well, after, it still stands to be seen though, because they have had a pretty decent record against blank and AHQ. Nonetheless, it's been sort of changing now towards the later end of the season, but that kind of makes things more exciting in a way where it's unclear who exactly comes out on top, and actually either of those teams could still come out on top. It's not just set in stone that AHQ and blank are better than Hong Kong Attitude yet. I would actually say that there's a good chance Hong Kong Attitude still really come out on top, and they feel like that roller coaster team right from the first match of OPC Season 2 that they were in, and now into the end, they're still in that sort of space, right? Because sometimes they can come in and feel like an absolutely amazing team, taking Flash Wolves to a map 5, nearly beating them for the first time for Hong Kong Attitude as well, but not quite getting there. But Hong Kong Attitude, look, right when it counts, though, they do still beat Machi. It was close, but I want to say that's more because Machi stepped up big time.
And the thing that is also still a factor here as well is thanks to securing that win, there is still the possibility for them to take the 3rd seed rather than the 4th seed to come into playoffs, which is still something significant. Look, they've never beaten Flash Wolves. They've come close twice. They haven't come really close to beating Ardian at all. You'd rather play Flash Wolves than Ardian in your semi-final. And if we're talking about making something out of your position in playoffs, out of your ability to get into playoffs, that something's got to be a semi-finals win. That something's got to be a grand finals appearance, because then at least the worst you walk away with is 2nd place. When you go from 5th in the initial point of Season 1 to 2nd in Season 2, that's a meteoric rise and a half. But let's get some words now from Mui.
Hello.
That's your word. Also, Jay, the coach of Hong Kong Attitude.
母语说他现在非常紧张，但是我们还是要来
So
访
Mui
问一下
says
这
he's
场比赛的
under a lot of
MVP。
pressure, feels a
刚
bit
刚那场
nervous,
比赛
but
其
he
实有
is the
点惊险，
MVP.
是从0-2落后的情况
So
之
it was
下
a
到
really
逆转胜
intense
出。
match. You started
你觉得
0-2,
关
but
键
then
点
got
是
the
什么
reverse
呢？跟
sweep.
大家分享一下。
What do you think was the difference there?
就是第一先扛住那个压力啦，因为
We needed
快要
to
输了，然后
just maintain the
我觉
pressure
得
on
接
our
下来又
team
做的
because
不
we
是
did nearly
继
lose,
续就是消极下去了，
and we need
就
to
是要
continue.
做的更正，
We need to continue working
谨
hard
慎，
好，谨
going
慎
into the playoffs
所以
as
谨
well,
慎。
一步一步的来，
and
然后
moving
一起做
forward
同
one
一个
step
目
at a
标。
time,
所以谨
keeping
慎
our
是你们
eyes
这场比
focused
赛
on
胜
what the
出的关
objective
键
is.
那我想问一下，这个 HK 的教练，就是接连2天的比赛当中，其实他们掉落的分数有点多。
So
那今天也
you've
是
lost
惊险
a lot of
过
maps
程，这当
in the
中
past
在
2
第2
days.
轮的赛季当中是都没有出现过的。那我想
This
请
is a kind of
教练跟我们
uncharted
分享一
territory
下
for your team because
近期
you
这
haven't
2
been in
场
this
赛事
losing
到底
position
发生
this
了什么
season
样的
yet.
状况？
What do you think's been going on in terms of
因
your
为大
play?
家都知道那个 meta 有改变
So everyone knows the meta has been
其实
changing.
对于约团啊，约那些韩国队，其实
So
我们
playing against
我
Korean
们因为
teams-
meta 上，所以我们只能打比赛服务器。那
It's
其实约团
difficult
上
because
是有
we
点
are
困
playing a
难。
different patch
产生的
in
一
scrims
个
than on
因为现在
matches.
Meta 已经进化到10杯以及这一个战术的套路了，所
对
以说有点跟不上。
对，然后
So it's been difficult to
可
try
能
and keep up to
OPC
that.
跟其他大型赛事都还没有改变那个 meta，所以
And
还是一样
OPC as
照
well as
旧
other
版本，所以我们
competitions are
约
still
团
in
上
the
其
older
实
patch.
确实有点困难，然后
So that's been a
团练的
difficulty.
机会也比较少，所以
We
我
haven't
们
had a
说实
chance to
话
practice what we would
练的
like to
练的
have.
时间不够多
And。we
确
need
实是
we
比较少。
we we need more time
那
to
我还有
practice.
第
That's
二个
been
问题
a
就是
problem for us.
今天在第2张地图国王大道，
So on
他们是
King's
使
Road
出了
today-
单带死神这样的一个角色，但是
It
在当
was
中担任
the
进攻的时
Reaper
候，
composition.
第2段终点前，这个木鱼选手是有受到了一个击杀，但是当下是立即将死神更换为小美，使出
So
了
you actually
这
changed
个
from
有点
Reaper to
像
May in the middle of that.
当时的这个状况是伤害有点打不太出来。
Did you
那
feel
为
like
什
you
么
weren't-
不是小林将这个拦路珠
Do you feel like
更
you
换为
weren't
出口闪光这样的角色
you weren't performing, or was it maybe Shailin instead?
其实他们在打的时候，我不会去限制他们太多什么，就是打
So
之前我都会
I
说
personally
你们
wasn't
想
saying
怎么
too
换
much in
都
the
可以
middle. You
然
know,
后
I'm not
你们要
mentioning
知
too
道
much
这
with
个
their
阵容
still plan.
要怎么赢才是重点。那
But
我觉得
when we
当
have
时
time to really talk
他觉
about
得
it-
死神不好打，或是
You really
其
talk
实
about
他
what's
现在
going
有个
wrong
老
there.
毛
And
病，
Mui had
然后也是
an issue where he
回
felt
去
like
可能要
Reaper
教
wasn't
他
being
的，只
effective.
是现在不方便说。
哦，是，可
And
能
there is
可以
there
先
is there are
将
other
战
issues as
术
well
套
that
路
I'm
先
I'm not
设
too
定
prepared to
好。
talk
当
about
下
just
如果
yet.
受到一些阻碍的时候，其实母语选手就是照着你设定的角色来做更换就可以了。
对，因为这个时候，其实这游戏 meta
So
在
in
转
this
变的时
game,
候，
the
角色
meta
换的时候是很快的。
the meta
所以
you know
我
changes
觉
and
得
hero
换角
picks
没关系
change
但
a
是你
lot.
要知道怎么赢这个。
But
这
you
个
also have to stay
我
focused
最后一个
on
问题是，
understanding what the
今
win
天恭喜
conditions are.
HK 已经进入到以第3名的姿态
So
进入
Hong
到
Kong
季
Attitude
后
are
赛
back in。
那
third
当然，
now.
在季后赛第1轮的对手就是闪电狼。
If
我
you
想
remain
请问
third,
一下
you're gonna play
自
against
己
Flash
的
Wolves.
团队对于闪电狼的这一
How do you
个
feel
把握
about
程度到底
potentially
有
going
几
up
成？
against Flash Wolves in the playoffs?
你说
胜算有几成？
对对对。
50-50吧。那如果你
It
不要
feels
错了
50-50,
60吧。
maybe 60.
母语先坦一下啊。
好的，谢谢木易，也谢谢教练接受我们访问。我们再一次恭喜
Interesting
HK
thoughts from
以
both
第
Mui
3种
and
子的
Coach
身份要进
Jay
入到
of
下个礼
Hong
拜的
Kong
季后赛
Attitude.
啦。谢谢
So
他们接受我们的赛后访问。
Yeah, it just
而下
feels
一场
like
比赛呢是
you know
由
some of the thoughts were definitely replicated there in terms of not feeling too comfortable in their own shoes just yet. Now moving into playoffs, a little bit more time to, I guess, get hold of what their problems are. That was, of course, their last match in the regular season, all done and dusted. So they'll have just short of a week to kind of shore up on
Yeah.
any problems.
And with that as well, they have just barely made it into playoffs at long last with that 3-2. Whether they get the 3rd seed or the 4th seed, I think, is still down to how AHQ blank go, because AHQ could 3-0 and that puts Hong Kong Attitude in the 4th seed, but that still remains to be seen next match along.
And with that now, the next match coming up is AHQ versus Blank Esports. We've already got done and dusted Machi and Hong Kong Attitude. A long night of games ahead of us, so make sure you stick with us. They're all going to be absolutely fantastic. And OPC Season 2 continues after this break.